Chapter 76. You can't take him away. Vernon Dursley shouted at the three people outside the door while holding onto the doorframe. The storm had not stopped at this time. Qin Yu, Hagrid, and Harry were standing outside, but they were not affected by the wind and rain. Hagrid took his umbrella and pointed at Vernon with the tip of the umbrella, signaling him not to have any other ideas. Hagrid has long disliked him. This guy just slandered not only Hogwarts, but also Dumbledore. If it weren't for the fact that he was a muggle, Hagrid would have taught him a lesson. Mr. Dursley, go back to your home. We are just taking Harry to go shopping. He will return to your home on Privet Drive soon. Qin Yu said to Harry's fat uncle. Vernon opened his mouth to say something else, but Qin Yu ignored him and carried an old-fashioned glass oil lamp and led Harry towards the small pier at the edge of the reef. There, two ships were parked. One is a small broken boat that Vernon Dursley brought his family over, and the other is relatively exquisitely made and is the boat that Qin Yu and Hagrid took here. When they got on the relatively exquisite boat, Qin Yu put the glass oil lamp on the bow. Harry's attention has actually always been on this glass oil lamp. When Qin and Hagrid made the decision to leave here immediately, he was worried about the storm outside. However, when Qin took out the glass oil lamp from nowhere and lit it, the wind and rain suddenly avoided them. It's open. It was as if there was a transparent ball covering the three of them, and now it covered the entire boat. Although rowing in a storm is a little more troublesome, the environment of that wooden house is really bad. If Hagrid and I lived there, your aunt and her family would probably not have a good rest. Qin Yu sat leisurely on the boat and said to Harry explained. Well, I actually couldn't sleep in that wooden house, Harry said. Then, Hagrid, let's go quickly. When we get to the shore, we can find a place to rest. Qin Yu urged Uncle Hagrid and winked at him a few times. Oh, you always make me make mistakes. Seriously, Qin, Harry, you must never tell others about my secret use of magic, Hagrid muttered. Uncle Hagrid had his wand broken due to an incident in his early years and was restricted from using magic. However, he had one hidden in his umbrella and would use it secretly from time to time. Under Harry's curious gaze, Hagrid tapped the side of the boat with the tip of her umbrella. The boat, which had been drifting in the wind and rain, began to accelerate and sailed towards the shore through the wind and waves. Of course, Qin Yu can do this kind of simple magic spell, but now that he is outside the school, it is not convenient for him to use magic too much, so he can only let Hagrid come. At this time, although there was a storm raging, the boat they were on was very stable. Qin Yu even took out a pack of candy-dried fruits and gave them to Harry to eat. Then, they listened to Hagrid talk about Voldemort and what happened on Halloween 10 years ago. James and Lily, your parents, were ambushed and killed by a mysterious man that night, and the scar on your head is what he left at that time. I don't know why. His evil spell didn't work. Then, the mysterious man disappeared. Some people thought he was dead, but Dumbledore said, however, this person is not so easy to kill. I took you out of the destroyed house and later sent you to your aunt and uncle. When Hagrid told the story of that year, Harry couldn't help but touch the lightning scar on his forehead and frowned, obviously recalling some painful memories. Maybe it couldn't be called memories, just some pictures that he couldn't distinguish the specific situation. Qin Yu looked at Harry's appearance and didn't know how to comfort him, so he patted the child on the shoulder. He originally thought that the child might cry, but Harry sniffed and tried to force out a smile. Hagrid, thank you for saving me, and thank you and Qin for sending me the letter today. This made Qin Yu secretly nod, feeling that this child was so tough at heart. For the next part of the voyage, the three of them were silent. Compared with the raging storm, the boat was so quiet that Harry fell asleep without even realizing it. And when he fell asleep, his head rested on Qin Yu's shoulder, and he held the corners of Hagrid's coat tightly in his hands. After the ship docked, Qin Yu took Hagrid to find a hotel, while Hagrid was carrying the sleeping little boy Harry Potter on his back. After they found a fairly clean railway hotel and Qin Yu paid, the three of them moved into a room that wasn't too big. Qin Yu didn't have many pounds on him and couldn't afford a room that was too expensive. Then, Harry and Qin Yu each occupied a bed, while Hagrid slept on the carpet. This kind of environment is already unmatched by the reef wooden house. The night was already deep. Qin Yu fell asleep quickly while lying on the bed, and when he woke up early the next morning, he found Harry wrapped in a quilt, squatting next to his bed and dozing off. Qin, are you awake? Harry's narrowed eyes widened immediately when he saw Qin Yu waking up. When did you wake up? Qin Yu asked with a frown. About daybreak, Harry said hesitantly. Qin Yu sighed and didn't investigate how long the child had slept. He got up and got out of bed and went to wake up Uncle Hagrid, who was sleeping soundly. After the three of them had a simple breakfast, they went to a nearby station to take the earliest train to London. In short, Qin Yu paid for the whole process because Uncle Hagrid was not very familiar with the coins of the Muggle world. This was one of the reasons why he asked Qin Yu to accompany him to deliver the letter to Harry. After arriving in London, Qin Yu and Hagrid took Harry straight to Diagon Alley. When they arrived in front of the Leaky Cauldron, it was already past 1 in the afternoon. Walking into the Leaky Cauldron, Harry was just as curious about the various wizards in the bar as Qin Yu was when he first came there. However, Harry was much more nervous and reserved. After all, he was a normal 11-year-old boy, and Qin there is an adult soul living in Yu's body. Unlike the curious and reserved Harry, Qin Yu's face quickly became solemn since he walked into the bar, and his brows were furrowed, as if he was thinking about some difficult problem or making a difficult decision. Host, please make your choice as soon as possible. When Harry was recognized by the bar owner Tom because of the lightning scar on his forehead, the system's urging voice echoed in Qin Yu's mind. That's right, not long after Qin Yu stepped into this bar, the system suddenly appeared and asked Qin Yu to make a choice. The reason that caused the system to issue this selection task was the pale young man with a turban on his head sitting in the corner of the bar. Quirinus Quirrell, or, as many people call him, Professor Quirrell. Chapter 77. Ding. Hello, host. A great adventure often starts with an inconspicuous little thing or a seemingly ordinary person. You saw Quirina's with a hidden identity in the Leaky Cauldron bar where people were mixed. Quirrell, please make the following choices. 1. Expose Quirrell's identity and reward 5 S-level treasure chests. 2. If you don't expose Quirrell's identity, you will be rewarded with 10 consecutive draws of S-level treasure chests. This was the choice given by the system after Qin Yu walked into the Leaky Cauldron and noticed Professor Quirrell. Yes, Qin Yu met Professor Quirrell for the first time in this world. He knew that Voldemort was currently living on the back of Professor Quirrell's head. If the system had not appeared, Qin Yu would definitely not have been obsessed with whether to reveal Quirrell's identity, but would have considered how to reveal it. At least there would have to be a capable helper by his side, such as Professor Dumbledore. However, the system gives 2 different options. Ding. Special reminder. Life is like the art of alchemy. Nobility is not innate, and courage is not born naturally. Those immature seedlings will never grow into towering trees without experiencing wind and rain. You can protect them from the wind and rain once, but it can't replace their growth. Immediately afterwards, there is the so-called special reminder given by the system. The system's reminder was the reason why Qin Yu had difficulty making a decision, because he heard the subtext of the system. That is, if he exposes Professor Quirrell's identity this time, it will certainly make the whole thing easier, but it will deprive those seedlings of a chance to grow. Those seedlings, besides Harry, should also include Hermione. I can protect them from the wind and rain, but I can't replace their growth. Qin Yu said this sentence silently in his heart. Yes, Qin Yu could certainly find ways to kill Quirrell, but Voldemort would be difficult to kill in a short while. If Voldemort finally comes back, will the children he protects be able to face the crisis in the future? Qin Yu is skeptical about this, because how can someone who has never experienced ups and downs have the courage and ability to fight against such a situation? Don't say anything. I'll take it all on my own. Qin Yu feels that he is not arrogant enough yet, because even he himself is carefully fighting against the power of Obscurus and working hard to improve himself through training, and his current ability is not to mention catching up with Dumbledore. Even Snake Professor Pooh could easily knock him down. When the time comes, will he be able to bear it? So, should he protect them from this storm? At this time, Harry was nervously and somewhat excitedly shaking hands with everyone in the bar, because everyone wanted to get to know the boy who beat Voldemort away, or disappeared anyway, and express their excitement. Qin Yu looked at this scene and made a difficult choice in his heart. Soon, most of the people in the Leaky Cauldron shook hands with the legendary Harry Potter, and the crowd gradually dispersed. Professor Quirrell, who was sitting in the corner, slowly stood up and approached them nervously. "Hi, Harry Potter. Nice to meet you." Professor Quirrell stammered. "Oh, Harry, this is Professor Quirrell from Hogwarts. When you start school, you will learn defense against the dark arts with him." Hagrid introduced Harry. Harry quickly said politely, "Hello, Professor Quirrell. I'm glad to meet you too. I'm looking forward to taking your class." Harry originally thought that Professor Quirrell would shake hands with him like the others, but the latter kept rubbing his hands nervously and had no intention of extending them. I think you don't need to take this course, Mr. Potter," Professor Quirrell said with a nervous twitch of his mouth and a smile. Just as they were talking, Someone new who walked into the bar knew that Harry Potter was here, so he hurried over to the bar. As he approached, Qin Yu stretched out a foot and tripped the man. The man stumbled and bumped into Professor Quirrell, who was speaking. Professor Quirrell leaned forward and bumped into Harry in front of him. Professor Quirrell's hand touched Harry's at the moment the two came into contact. He immediately shrank back as if he had touched live coals. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so excited. The newcomer apologized repeatedly, then held Harry's hand and said, Are you Harry Potter? I'm really excited to see you. You wanna How long do you want to stay here? I'm going to call my friends over now. I'll be leaving soon, Harry said with a grin. Okay, my friend. We have business to do and we can't delay here any longer. Hagrid pulled the man's hand away and said. Then, he turned to Qin Yu and said, Qin, let's go. Well, okay. Qin Yu nodded. Then, before leaving, Qin Yu glanced at the pale Professor Quirrell again. Then, he pulled Harry Potter towards the patio behind the bar. Choose 2. Qin Yu made a choice in his heart the moment he left the bar. Ding. You have made a prudent choice after careful consideration. This reward will be issued after the death of the key person. Special reminder. Before the end of the mission, the host will not be able to reveal Professor Quirrell's hidden identity to others. The system gave responded. An important reason why Qin Yu made such a choice is that, relatively speaking, the level difficulty this time is not too high. The first level can let these seedlings experience it. At worst, he will help them clear the next levels one by one. Just like what the system said, if he helped them block all the wind and rain from the beginning, in the end, they might all die under the Death Eater's wand. Compared to such an ending, Qin Yu would rather they go through it again or go through part of it. When it's time to be ruthless, you still have to be ruthless, Qin Yu said helplessly in his heart. Then, he noticed another special reminder from the system. The host will not be able to reveal Professor Quirrell's hidden identity to others until the end of the mission. The system uses cannot here instead of cannot and not allowed. Does that mean that even if Qin Yu wants to take the initiative to reveal Professor Quirrell's hidden identity to others, he can't? So what happens if he reveals it? With these thoughts in mind, Qin Yu followed Hagrid and Harry into Diagon Alley and then went straight to Gringotts. They were going there to help Harry withdraw money, and Hagrid was also going to pick up something stored inside. Dimensional wall. This was actually a setting that I had thought about before writing the book. However, when I was writing it, I realized that it was really difficult to deal with. Chapter 78. Qin Yu has been to Gringotts more than once, and the goblin clerks still have the same bad faces as before. Of course, this may also be because of their appearance. Hagrid held in his hand the key that Harry's parents left for Harry. After giving the key to the goblin clerk, he took out a letter written by Dumbledore. The clerk looked up the letter and said, This big gentleman, I must remind you that Gringotts has the most secure vault in the world. I believe you know something about our security measures. Oh, of course I understand this. Hagrid nodded. So, are you sure you want to take that thing away? The goblin clerk asked solemnly. Yes, we have our own considerations, Hagrid said firmly. Okay, Griphook, take the 3 gentlemen to the vault. The clerk called a goblin who was responsible for leading the way. Then, the goblin named Griphook took Hagrid, Qin Yu, and Harry to the underground vault. When Griphook opened the vault that belonged to Harry, Harry was stunned. The piles of gold galleons, silver sickles, and copper nuts told him about the wealth of his family, which made him even more excited. Fa became curious about his origins. However, it seemed that Hagrid didn't know much. He just roughly said that the Potter family was quite wealthy, and also mentioned the Black family. However, this was the first time Harry had heard of the surname Black. Okay, take some money and keep the rest here. If you take too much, you won't be able to use it. Of course, Qin Yu was a little envious of this child from a wealthy family. However, his parents are both dead, so any words of envy would be a bit excessive. Qin Yu grabbed 2 handfuls of gold galleons, 1 handful of silver sickles, and 1 handful of copper nuts, and stuffed them into Harry's money bag. He didn't count the exact numbers. Anyway, Gringotts would keep statistics. In terms of money, in terms of amount, this fairy bank is still trustworthy. With money on his side, Harry was obviously confident. When he got on the Gringotts rail car, he nervously said to Qin Yu and Hagrid, Hagrid, I will treat you to something to eat later. No, Harry, don't mention food first. I'm afraid I'll vomit. Hagrid was very uncomfortable with Gringotts' fast and twisty vault rail car. Qin Yu was much better. He loudly introduced several stores to Harry and said, My sister and I have eaten in these stores, and the taste is quite special. But those made with precious ingredients will be very expensive. For example, food with dragon liver will cost 1 or 2 gold galleons to start. After all, 1 ounce of dragon liver costs more than 10 kilos. It's even more expensive. Harry actually didn't know much about prices in the wizarding world, but he only vaguely felt that this dragon liver was probably a very expensive item. Huh, Qin, you have a sister? Harry suddenly noticed this and said eagerly. Qin is the first wizard of the same age he has met, and he is also a person he thinks is very good. He hopes to get to know Qin's family as well. Of course, if Harry knew something about Eastern culture, he would probably know that his mentality is called if you like a person, even the crows on his house will like him. Oh, Qin, you're talking about Hermione, right? Hagrid knew Qin Yu quite well. Hermione? Is her surname also Qin? Harry asked curiously. No, her surname is Granger, Qin Yu said helplessly. Why? You don't have the same last name? Harry asked confused. Because, just like you, I also live in other people's homes. Qin Yu spread his hands and said. Qin Yu's answer shocked Harry. He didn't expect that he and Qin Yu had this in common. However, judging from Qin Yu's tone, it was obvious that he had a good relationship with the sister named Hermione. This made Harry feel a little envious. After all, his relationship with his cousin Dudley could only be described as enemies. A few people talked, and soon they arrived at the place where the thing Hagrid wanted to take was Vault number 713. This vault was protected by a special magic spell and could not be opened by ordinary people. The goblin named Griphook who led the way also explained to them how unbreakable this vault was. This amused Qin Yu. He really wanted to record what Griphook said so that he could slap them in the face. Unfortunately, he didn't have a magic camera with him. After the vault was opened, there were no golden, white, or yellow coins, but only a small brown paper bag with something unknown inside. Of course, Qin Yu must know that inside is the legendary magic stone, the ultimate product of alchemy, which can turn stone into gold and make people immortal. What is this? Harry held back for a long time and finally asked. Of course he knew that he shouldn't ask this question, and Hagrid might not be able to answer if he asked it, but he still couldn't help but be curious. Sure enough, when Hagrid heard this, he said mysteriously, Sorry, Harry, I can't tell you what it is. Okay, it's getting late, we should go. However, Qin Yu had no intention of moving. Instead, he looked at Harry and said word by word, Harry, this is the magic stone. He didn't know why he said this suddenly. He was probably impulsive and wanted to try what would happen if he said it. Then, he saw Hagrid's frown and Harry's blank expression. Harry obviously didn't know what the Philosopher's Stone was. While their expressions were still lingering on Qin Yu's retina, Qin Yu felt like the world was spinning. Then, he found himself on top of the fast-moving treasury rail car again. Why? You don't have the same last name? Harry's confused voice sounded. That expression was exactly the same as before. Because, like you, I also live in other people's homes. Qin Yu replied subconsciously. Then, he shook his head to drive away the weird feeling in his heart. And Harry's performance was the same as before, falling into surprise and silence. Then, the rail car stopped in front of the vault door number 713, and the goblin Griphook boasted about their unbreakable protection. When Hagrid took away the paper package, Harry asked with equal curiosity, What is this? Before Hagrid could speak, Qin Yu said first, Harry, this is the magic stone. Hagrid's frown and Harry's blank expression were reflected in Qin Yu's black eyes again. After the world was spinning, he came to the rail car again. Why? You don't have the same last name? Because, like you, I also live in other people's homes. We're going to get the magic stone later. The world spins and returns again. Why? Because she is my wife. Huh. Hagrid wants to take the magic stone. Return. Why? We're going to get the Philosopher's Stone. Keep going back. In this way, Qin Yu tried the time to say the 3 words Philosopher's Stone over and over again, and every time, he would return to the rail car without any accident, and then face Harry's question again. Of course, there were a few times when he was really too lazy to answer, and just said some random words. Anyway, when he said the name Philosopher's Stone again, time would go back. That's right, Qin Yu encountered time regression. The fundamental reason is that he told a secret that shouldn't be told. Ding. Host, you have already tried 38 times, and there is no point in trying again. I would like to remind you again. The magic stone is a first-level related item. You cannot disclose relevant information to others until the current selection event has reached the necessary stage. When Qin Yu was forced to go back in time, system sounds would pop up from time to time, reminding him, I know. I have gone back so many times and my mind is in a mess now. Qin Yu felt as if he had replayed a certain movie clip many times, and as if he had had many dreams with similar plots. If it happened a few more times, he felt that he might become insane. By the way, did I say anything strange just now? Qin Yu asked in his mind. Strange words? Does child support count? The system replied. How could I say such incomprehensible and ridiculous words? Qin Yu was stunned. Maybe it's because you were a little excited just now, and your language center temporarily lost control. The system gave an explanation. Yeah, I really couldn't control what I said just now. Qin Yu accepted this explanation. Then, let's do it one last time, and erase those irrelevant fragments. Qin Yu's communication with the system seemed to be a lot, but in fact it only happened in a short moment. When he decided to go back for the 39th time, he took the Philosopher's Stone directly ahead of Hagrid and said to Harry, "Don't ask, this is the Philosopher's Stone." After the last spin, Qin Yu was cautious in his words and deeds, saying nothing out of the ordinary, and when Hagrid took away the magic stone, he did not explain to Harry what it was. "Okay, we should go. There are still many things to buy," Hagrid urged. Chapter 79. After 39 times of backtracking, Qin Yu was finally sure of what the system had said before about the inability to disclose information to others. This is directly forcibly erasing it. Of course, Qin Yu also thought about whether he could use this bug to do something. After all, the ability to go back in time is really powerful. However, when he had such an idea, the system told him in a cold tone, "Don't try to take advantage of this unstable mechanism." What is instability? Qin Yu thought about it for a while, and this probably means that the length of the backtracking time is unstable, and the impact of the backtracking is also unstable. For example, if he wants to go back to before a certain event happened, but the time only goes back to after that event happened, then this kind of backtracking has no meaning. Even if there is any butterfly effect, it may cause even greater trouble. "It's good that you know," the system said in an angry tone. "You still say you have no emotions? Who are you? Let's talk." Qin Yu couldn't help but ask in his mind. However, the system once again disappeared and there was no news. "Qin, can you accompany Harry to buy a robe? I'm dizzy and want to drink something to cheer me up." Hagrid touched his nose and said to Qin Yu, "Go on, don't drink too much, remember? You have something important with you." Qin Yu said pointedly. "Don't worry, I'll be back soon," Hagrid said happily. So, Hagrid patted his butt and left, while Qin Yu took Harry shopping. Harry certainly had no objection to this arrangement. In his opinion, having Qin by his side made him feel more at ease. After all, this boy who is slightly older than him is far more calm than his peers. Even Hagrid often asks Qin for advice and is willing to listen to his advice. It can be said that although Qin Yu is not as big as Hagrid, he gives Harry a greater sense of security than Hagrid. Madame Malkin greeted the guests as warmly as ever, introduced Harry into the fitting room, took measurements, and had his clothes altered. The clerk, Miss Witch, also brought Qin Yu a cup of tea and a plate of biscuits like last time, so that his waiting time here would be less boring. However, after Qin Yu drank a cup of tea and ate a few biscuits, he suddenly remembered something and got up and went to the fitting room in the back hall of the store. In this small place, two children were trying on wizard robes. One of the children was naturally Harry Potter, and the other was a little boy with blonde hair and a haughty face. "Have you ever played Quidditch?" "I have played it, and my father taught me it himself," the blonde boy said with a proud look on his face. Harry opened his mouth, but said nothing. Because he has neither played Quidditch nor has a father, he didn't want to get involved in such a topic. "However, my father always said that you have to fly fast enough to practice Quidditch. Otherwise you will be chased and beaten." "Huh, if I go on the field, how can anyone catch me?" the blonde boy said arrogantly. "Oh, that's it," Harry said perfunctorily. The boy had just said a lot of words that he didn't quite understand, and his attitude was very bad. It even reminded him of his cousin Dudley. He originally thought that people in the wizarding world were probably like Qin, handsome, confident, calm, and polite. However, the boy next to him changed Harry's view. It seems that people like Qin are very special beings, whether in the world of ordinary people, he is not used to using the word muggle yet, or in the world of wizards. Harry came to this conclusion. "So, did your father tell you that if you are in Hogwarts, you must stay away from a person named Qin, especially on the Quidditch field?" a lazy voice said in a playful tone, said in a tone of voice. Harry and the blonde boy looked back at the same time. The former naturally showed an expression of joy and relief, while the latter frowned and looked thoughtful. Yes, the person speaking was Qin Yu. Are you talking about Qin, Gryffindor's strongest first-year batter? The blonde boy asked. You actually know? Qin Yu was a little surprised, especially the adjectives the blonde boy said. He didn't expect that he was somewhat famous. Of course I know. He is the person I want to defeat, the blonde boy said with his chin raised. Ha! You are ambitious. Qin Yu stretched out his thumb at him. You're right. My father told me to stay away from this person named Qin. Don't mess with such an uncultured person. But I won't be afraid of him. I am the best at Hogwarts. Student, the blonde boy said with determination. Many years later, when the blonde boy grew up, got married and had children, and his son asked him about his past, he would always think of today's events with embarrassment, and he really didn't want the people present today to talk about it, because too embarrassing and shameful. Not bad, not bad, keep it up, I appreciate your confidence. Qin Yu clapped his hands and said, Who are you? Why are you saying these things to me? The blonde boy asked in confusion. You will know who I am soon. Qin Yu gave up. There was nothing he could do. Looking at Malfoy's energetic face, Qin Yu felt that this child really deserved a beating. However, it is normal for children to be ignorant. They just need to be trained and disciplined, as long as their intentions are not bad. Yes, this blonde boy is Draco Malfoy, the precious son of Lucius Malfoy. It's ready, boy. Madame Malkin said to Harry. Thank you, Mrs. Malkin. Harry thanked him quickly, jumped off the footstool, and quickly came to Qin Yu's side. Bye. See you at school. Qin Yu waved goodbye to Malfoy. See you at school. See you at school. Malfoy said unwillingly. He felt that this boy with an oriental face was really weird. However, this guy seems pretty cool. There was no way. Malfoy had always aimed to become the best student at Hogwarts, so he naturally felt that he should be the coolest one. Now that he met Qin Yu, he instinctively felt that this person might be a threat. Of course, he also thought that this boy might be Qin. However, those two people were already far away, and he couldn't verify it even if he wanted to. After Qin Yu took Harry out of the robe shop, he briefly explained to him what Quidditch was and answered some of the child's other doubts. As for Uncle Hagrid, he probably felt more at ease with Qin Yu, as he hadn't even come out of the bar yet. Qin Yu had no choice but to take Harry shopping and buy him an ice cream. Then, the two went to several other stores to buy back-to-school supplies. It wasn't until they came to the entrance of Ollivander's wand store that they met Uncle Hagrid. Chapter 80. In Ollivander's wand shop, the wand with a Hollywood phoenix feather core was handed over to Harry Potter by Mr. Ollivander. Then, Harry waved his wand to try it out, and the tip of the wand emitted a dazzling light like fireworks. Apparently, as Mr. Ollivander often said, the wand shows Harry as its master. The core of its staff is the tail feather of a phoenix, and it also has a brother, which comes from the same phoenix. It is this brother that left this scar on your forehead. Mr. Ollivander said nonchalantly. These words shocked Harry because he knew who left the scar on his forehead, and now that he was using a similar wand to that person, would he? You want to say, will you become like that person, right? Qin Yu expressed Harry's worries on his behalf. Yes, Qin. I don't want to have any contact with him. So is this wand really suitable for me? Harry frowned and looked at the wooden box in his hand. At this time, they had come out of the wand shop. The wand was put back into the wooden box and packaged by Mr. Ollivander. A magic wand is just a magic wand. You won't become him just because you have something in common with that person. And, I believe, you will never become him, Qin Yu said firmly. After listening to Qin Yu's words, Harry's brows gradually widened, and he nodded solemnly and said, Qin, I won't be him. I will become an excellent wizard like my parents. Hagrid has already told him that his parents have always been very good at Hogwarts, and even became the presidents of the male and female student unions respectively. Harry felt that they were his role models and the goals he strived to catch up to. Well, not bad, that's how it should be. Qin Yu nodded with satisfaction. Then, he said jokingly, besides, you have already paid. If you go to exchange it now, Mr. Ollivander will be unhappy, and he will have to rummage through the box to find a new wand for you. Haha, then I won't cause any trouble to Mr. Ollivander, Harry said with a smile. Seeing Qin Yu easily dispelling Harry's worries, Hagrid suddenly felt that he was really relieved. Then, he thought about what he had to do. So, he said to Harry, Harry, I plan to give you a birthday gift. Huh. No, Hagrid, you don't have to. Haha, I actually didn't buy anything specifically. Next, I plan to give you an owl, which is exactly what is mentioned in the item list. Owls are very practical animals. Not only are they very obedient, they can also deliver letters and packages to you. After Hagrid said this, He pointed at Qin Yu and continued, "You can ask Qin about this." He raised an owl named Trig. In the past year, Trig has helped a lot. He and Hermione delivered the letter. Qin Yu glanced at Hagrid and thought to himself, "Why are you cueing me if you are fine?" When he heard Hagrid mention Hermione again, Harry looked at Qin Yu curiously. "I probably haven't told you before, Hermione only went to Hogwarts this year. So in the past year, when I was in school, I would send letters through owls. Well, there were too many backtrackings just now, and Qin Yu was actually a little unsure whether he had told Harry about this. So that's it. It seems like owls are really useful." Harry was looking forward to having an owl. Of course, he still didn't know who to write to. Then, they entered the Ela Owl store and selected a white owl within 10 minutes. The store owner accepted that it was a relatively rare snowy owl. Harry was very satisfied with this bird, because Qin said that his was also a snowy owl, but a male. "Then, you'll be called Hedwig from now on," Harry said to the white owl in the birdcage. This was the name he had just accidentally read when buying a book at Flourish and Blott's bookstore. He didn't take a closer look, but he just thought it was pretty good. "Goo." The owl made a confused sound, obviously not quite understanding what the little boy said. "However, if we get along with each other in the future, we will probably become familiar with each other soon. By the way, Hagrid, you take Harry to the Crucible store to choose a Crucible first. I'll go there to buy something. You know, I've been out for 2 days and I have to bring some gifts back." Qin Yu spread his hands and said, "Huh, then I'll give Hermione something." Hagrid scratched his head and said, "I'll just buy one more and say it's from you." Qin Yu said with a smile, "Okay, when she goes to Hogwarts, I will invite her to the wooden house for tea." Uncle Hagrid also said with a smile. So, Qin Yu said goodbye to Hagrid and Harry and walked in the other direction. Hagrid and Harry watched him leave and then walked towards the Patchy's Crucible shop that specialized in all kinds of crucibles. What they didn't know was that not long after Qin Yu walked out, he turned into an alley. Not long after, a man wearing a golden mask and a black cloak walked out of the alley. If someone pays attention to this person, they will find that this person's height and body shape are very vague, or in other words, it is difficult to leave any impression on others. Of course, most people didn't pay much attention to this person. After all, in the wizarding world, such dressing up is normal, and cloaks are essential clothing for wizards. This even gave rise to a proverb: Merlin can live without pants, but definitely not without a cape. In short, the cloaked man wearing a golden mask walked hurriedly on the streets of Diagon Alley without many people paying attention, and soon he arrived in front of Gringotts. After waiting here, he stepped closer. The goblin guard standing at the door bowed to him. Just when the goblin guard bent down, the man threw a paper ball on the ground, then turned and left. "That, sir." "No, madam." "No, sir." "In short, that guest." "Your things have fallen off," the goblin guard shouted loudly. However, the man in the black cloak left without looking back and quickly disappeared into the crowd. The goblin guard picked up the paper ball on the ground and looked at it. He felt that it was probably not something valuable, so he spread it out and looked at it. When he saw the writing on it clearly, he couldn't help but smile. Because it says in red words, "Someone will steal the Gringotts vault today. Please be sure to take precautions." What a joke. Who dares to steal Gringotts? You know, Gringotts has mechanisms, spells, and fire dragons. Anyone who dares to come here to steal must think that life is too easy. The goblin guard originally wanted to throw away the note, but then he thought about it. Since someone took the initiative to warn him, he might as well report it to his superiors to avoid any liability for dereliction of duty if anything happened. Of course, he actually felt that his idea was a bit ridiculous. How could something happen in Gringotts? With such ambivalence, he handed the note to the goblin supervisor in charge of security. As expected, the goblin supervisor also laughed, which made the goblin guard a little stunned. In a hidden alley, the golden mask was taken off, revealing a handsome oriental face under the mask. This person is of course our protagonist Qin Yu. Chapter 81. Qin Yu put away the mask, quickly took off his cloak, and stuffed it somewhere on his body. Soon, he changed back to his original casual-looking attire. He changed out of the robe after coming out of the hotel. Just now, Qin Yu used his second brother, using the alchemy mask given to him by Professor Swinton, to hide his figure and send the warning note to Gringotts. From the current point of view, there is no time backtracking phenomenon. In other words, Qin Yu has a lot of freedom to participate in the whole thing without touching certain high-level related events and items. In terms of his own strength, Qin Yu really couldn't beat Professor Quirrell, who was possessed by Voldemort. After all, even if Tom was half disabled, he was still a famous Dark Lord. Note: Voldemort's real name is Tom Riddle, and he is nicknamed the Dark Lord and Lord. Therefore, Qin Yu decided to kill with a borrowed knife and issued a warning to make Gringotts be more vigilant. In this way, when Quirrell went to steal the vault as planned, even if he could not be tricked to death, he would still suffer some pain. Of course, Qin Yu didn't think Gringotts could really catch Quirrell. This was just his attempt. After quickly sorting out his thoughts, Qin Yu walked calmly out of the alley and headed to a store not far away. Of course, he wasn't looking for an excuse to buy something for Hermione. He really wanted to buy it. So, he asked the clerk at Florence's cold drink shop to pack him some ice cream, iced fruit tea, and other things. This store provides a magical packaging box that can be temporarily refrigerated, so Qin Yu does not need to worry about the ice cream melting. I've got an extra raspberry jam for you. It's free. The young clerk handed the stuff to Qin Yu and said with a smile, "Thank you." Qin Yu nodded in thanks. "You're welcome. Welcome to visit next time," the young clerk said to Qin Yu with a bright smile. After carrying his things and leaving, Qin Yu touched his nose and felt that the clerk at the cold drink shop seemed a little too enthusiastic. Is it because I often buy ice cream from him and he has remembered me? Well, he is indeed a very attentive person, Qin Yu thought to himself. What he didn't know was that after he left, the young clerk looked at his leaving figure and murmured, "What a pity. I graduated too early and couldn't play with you on the Quidditch field. Compete." "Hello, I want an ice cream." A little girl's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Okay, what flavor do you want?" The clerk immediately put on a bright professional smile and said enthusiastically to the little girl, I want this. No, I want that. No, I'll think about it." Well, this is a customer who has difficulty choosing. The young clerk has seen many such customers, so he waited patiently for the little girl to make the final decision. And he took the opportunity to dazzle, thinking about what the old man he respected the most once said to him. "I hope you can be willing to be lonely, because I have an important thing to entrust you to do." Well, the job of a cold drink shop clerk was indeed different from what he expected when he was in school, and it also didn't quite match his personality. However, he believed that he was participating in an important cause, because he believed in the old man, and many people believed in the old man, because that old man is the greatest wizard in the world. Qin Yu put the packed cold drinks into the cloth bag on his body, and went to a few more stores to buy some rare fruits and other things that were not available in the Muggle world. Of course, there were also some accessories that the little girl liked, and he bought a lot of gadgets from the old lady in the grocery store. Feeling that he had almost finished his shopping, Qin Yu walked towards the Crucible store. When they arrived at the place, Hagrid and Harry were already waiting there. "Have you bought everything?" Qin Yu asked. "I bought everything. I just checked the list of items." Harry nodded quickly and said, while waiting for Qin Yu, he was really bored. So he checked the purchased items against the list of items 7 or 8 times. "Well, that's good, we should go," Qin Yu said. Harry was stunned by this statement, because he didn't expect the separation to come so quickly. "Before we leave, let's go have a big meal," Qin Yu suggested. "Well, okay." Harry was obviously not in a very good mood. "Don't be unhappy, we will meet again in a month." Qin Yu patted Harry on the shoulder and said, Harry bit his lip, lowered his head and hummed. "Then, if you are willing, you can ask Hedwig to send me a message." Qin Yu looked at the dazed owl and said, "Of course I do. I will write to you, Qin." After hearing this, Harry raised his head and said a little excitedly. Just now he was thinking about who to let the owl deliver the letter to, but now he finally found someone to whom he could write. Just like that, Qin Yu, Hagrid and Harry went to a wizard-specific restaurant in Diagon Alley to eat, and the food they ate was something Harry had never seen before. As the food was eaten, Harry's mood improved. Of course, Harry was still a little sad before parting ways after dinner. He felt that from midnight to now, it was the most fulfilling day of his life, and it was also a day that he had never expected. Qin and Hagrid are the best people he has ever met. Now that the separation is imminent, he will inevitably feel reluctant to leave. Separating is for a better reunion, isn't it, Harry? Qin Yu said with a smile. Well, you're right, Qin. We'll see you in a month. Harry cheered up and said to Qin Yu, Well, see you in a month. Qin Yu nodded and said. Then they separated outside the leaky cauldron. Since there was no way, Harry was sent to the train station by Hagrid, who asked him to return to his aunt's house in Surrey, while Qin Yu went back to Granger's house. In fact, Qin Yu also felt that he had a fulfilling day today. Well, anyone who has gone back in time 39 times will find it very fulfilling. Of course, in addition to this experience in the Gringotts vault, Qin Yu felt that he encountered a lot of people and things today. Of course, Harry counts as one, and Professor Quirrell should count as 1.5. And the choice he made really made him confused whether it was good or bad. The good thing is that you can predict a certain direction of events. The bad thing is that he can't choose to quit midway. He can only try to influence. This is also the purpose of his warning to Gringotts. These things made Qin Yu feel a little irritable. He shook his head and decided not to worry about it for the time being. Then, the figure of the little brown-haired girl appeared in his mind. So, he quickened his pace and walked to the nearby subway station. He wanted to go back early and see her early, and then show her everything he had just bought. In this case, she probably won't be so angry. Well, some rewards are not impossible. Qin Yu thought about the endless thoughts and took the subway back. Dimensional wall. Floren's cold drink shop clerk is a vest provided by a reader. It is more suitable here, so he appears. There should be some scenes later. I've been revising the text a lot lately, especially the second chapter. You can open it the next day and read it. Of course, I usually just add something at the end of the chapter and won't change too much. You can read more daily new novels on. Both sites share the same login details, so you don't need to sign up again. Chapter 82. Crookshanks, do you want me to ignore him when he comes back? Hermione asked seriously, lifting the cat that had obviously grown very big. Meow dash. Crookshanks called in question. Okay, then I'll ignore him. Who asked him to go without me? Hermione said angrily. Meow woo slash. Crookshanks continued to question. Well, what you said is not unreasonable. He did say that the place he went to this time was a bit far and a bit remote, and he didn't want me to be too tired from the journey. Hermione put the cat down on the leg, he said while stroking its back. Meow. Crookshanks made a comfortable cry, and purring sounds came from his body. But, I'm not a child anymore. Why can't I go where he can go? Are you right? Hermione said again to the yellow cat on her lap. Meow dash. Crookshanks barked impatiently. Anyway, it's already summer vacation, but he actually went to another place and left me alone at home for 2 whole days. Humph. I have to ignore him for at least a day. Well, half a day. What do you think, Crookshanks? Woo. Crookshanks yelled out the second half of what he just said. Well, that's it. You can't ignore him, you know? Hermione warned. Crookshanks ignored it, rubbed his little master's legs, found a comfortable position to lie down, and planned to have a good sleep. It would be great if there was a car. I don't know if the Weasley family is willing to take action on the flying car. I will have to talk to George and Fred later and ask them to ask Mr. Weasley. Qin Yu said I was thinking like this when I walked up the stairs of the subway station. When he came back from Diagon Alley, he had to take a long subway ride, which delayed him a lot of time. So, he naturally thought of the car modified by Mr. Arthur Weasley, the father of the Weasley family. It was a magical car that could fly. Qin Yu didn't know how Mr. Weasley got the magic. He exploited the internal loopholes and was able to modify the car. In fact, he has also considered connecting Granger's fireplace to the Floo network, so that long-distance transmission can be achieved by using a small amount of Floo powder. However, he quickly rejected this idea because he did not want too many things from the magical world to appear in the Granger family, which would have some impact and trouble on the Grangers. As for buying a Muggle world car, he is still young and does not have a driver's license, and he does not have pounds. Gringotts will not give him unlimited exchange for Muggle world currency. There was also a flying broomstick. If he dared to fly around London on it, people from the Ministry of Magic would come to the door the next day and arrest him. Then, he would have to wait for Hermione to give him jail time. Well, Hermione. The reason why Qin Yu thinks about these things is to make himself calmer. After all, when he left home yesterday, that look in Hermione's eyes. Will I be kicked out of the house by my wife? Ah, Hermione? Qin Yu secretly thought in his heart. Okay, 39 times of time retrieval has had a great impact on Qin Yu's thinking and cognition, and sometimes the title is a bit confusing. He decided that before going home, he should clarify the boundaries between reality and that chaotic state, so as to avoid adverse consequences caused by saying the wrong thing. Hermione, I'm back. Qin Yu walked into the house and said with a smile on his face to the girl who was playing with her cat and watching TV in the living room. Oh, you're back, Hermione said calmly. Such a reaction made Qin Yu a little unsure about the little girl's current situation. Well, I bought you your favorite ice cream, which is sold at Floren's cold drink shop in Diagon Alley. The clerk also specially added an extra raspberry sauce. Qin Yu spoke in a gentle manner. He took out the refrigerated packaged ice cream from the dump space bag. Hermione glanced at it, moved her mouth, and then looked at the TV again, her tone still calm, and said, I'm not hungry and I don't want to eat. Qin Yu took a breath and thought to himself that he must be angry if he doesn't even eat ice cream. He didn't have much experience coaxing girls in his previous life, so it was really hard for Qin Yu to deal with such a difficult matter. Even though he has an extraordinary IQ and a wealth of clever tricks, he is also a bit blind when it comes to his own shortcomings. Well, you don't know that the place we went to this time is really too dangerous. It was an isolated reef on the sea. Last night, there was a storm there, and the strong winds were blowing. In the dark clouds, there was a petrel, which was blown into the huge waves and almost drowned, and the boat with Hagrid and I sailed in the strong wind and waves. The boat was really to be overthrown. Qin Yu decided to change his approach. Sure enough, when the little girl heard this, she asked with some worry, "Then have you?" Immediately, she realized something was wrong. Her face fell, and she said calmly, "Since you are standing here properly, it proves that nothing is wrong with you. My girlfriend's IQ is too high, and it's hard to coax her. What should I do? Wait online, it's quite urgent." Qin Yu thought to himself, "Huh? The cognitive bias seems to have appeared again. How can I have a girlfriend?" Actually, we can't say that nothing happened. After we received the person, we had no place to stay, so we found a small and shabby hotel. As you know, I didn't have much money, and Hagrid was even poorer. Hagrid had to sleep in a very small room, and the breakfast the next day was so pitiful that Hagrid didn't even have enough to eat. Qin Yu said in a lamenting tone. "Wait, what did you just say?" Hermione suddenly turned her head, her delicate brows furrowed, and she looked at Qin Yu sharply. "Hagrid not eaten enough?" Qin Yu said blankly. "No, it's what I said before," Hermione said anxiously, her hands subconsciously scratching the back of Crookshank's neck. "Breakfast is too little?" Qin Yu said this and thought to himself, "What's the problem with this?" "That's not the case, go ahead." Hermione shook her head. "Before, I didn't bring many pounds. Hagrid and I could only sleep in a very small room." Qin Yu repeated what he had just said. Then, he saw the little girl snorting, looking at him with angry eyes, and said angrily, "So, who is Harley?" Harry? Is he the student we want to pick up?" "We returned to the shore from the reef, stayed in that hotel, and then went to Diagon Alley," Qin Yu briefly recounted. "Then you live in the same room with her? And you're still crowded together?" Hermione pursed her lips and said angrily and aggrievedly, "Isn't there no money?" "She and I," Qin Yu said, feeling that something was wrong. "Wait a minute. Why did you use the word her? Her? What's wrong with this?" Hermione asked blankly. "Although Harry looks very quiet and delicate, he is indeed a boy." Qin Yu looked at the girl's somewhat dazed eyes and said with a twitch of the corner of his mouth, "Harry?" Hermione repeated the name. "Yes, Harry Potter. Have you forgotten that you read a book about him a few days ago?" Qin Yu said helplessly. I don't remember any of this." Hermione hesitated. Because other things happened that day, she was not so impressed by the name. Chapter 83. Of course, even if something else happened that day, if Qin Yu said Harry Potter's full name from the beginning, Hermione would probably be able to recall the name recorded in the book immediately. However, Qin Yu just mentioned the ordinary-sounding name Harry in a bald manner, and Hermione subconsciously heard it as Harry, because, before leaving, Qin Yu only said that he would go with Hagrid to deliver an admission letter to a new student at Hogwarts, without mentioning who it would be for. And Hermione also once thought that the other party might be a girl. There is no chance of this, right? Moreover, every time she thought about this, she became angry for no reason. Therefore, when Qin Yu mentioned a name that sounded a bit like a girl's, she suddenly entered into those previous imaginations. "So, Harry is the Harry Potter?" Hermione asked herself to speak as calmly as possible. "Yes, that's right." Qin Yu nodded and said, "Then you guys sleep in the same bed?" Hermione raised her eyebrows and continued to ask, "So what if Harry is a boy?" The little girl thought to herself. Huh. Qin Yu was stunned, wondering if this girl's focus was wrong. "How big is the bed?" Hermione asked again, getting lucky. "The bed is very small." "Wait, it's not one bed, it's two. Two very small beds." Qin Yu felt that he was almost trapped by this girl, and quickly corrected him. "Oh, that's it." Hermione's face immediately became calm. "Okay, I was wrong, Hermione. I will definitely take you with me next time." Qin Yu took this opportunity and said quickly, "Oomph." Hermione turned her head to the side. "Well, it's no longer the cold violence just now, which is a good sign." Qin Yu made a judgment. "Oh, the refrigeration effect of this packaging box is going to disappear, and the ice cream is going to melt soon," Qin Yu said exaggeratedly, and then lamented, Well, in order not to waste, I can only eat these two. It fell. How dare you, that's mine. Hermione turned her head and said dissatisfied. So, the beautiful and lovely Miss Granger, are you willing to accept my gift that can bring you summer refreshment? Qin Yu said this, bent over, and held an ice cream stick like a rose. Handed it to Hermione. Hermione looked at his approaching face and inexplicably remembered the scene when she read the book about Harry Potter that day. That day, in order to comfort Qin, who was somewhat unconvinced, she kissed him on the cheek. Author. That's not called being unconvinced, that's called being jealous. Then, she was thinking, I'm unhappy today. Why didn't he think of giving me a kiss on the cheek? However, when she thought of this, her heartbeat became very fast. Her face felt a little hot, and her mouth felt a little dry. Well, summer is here. I'm just a little hot. That's why I eat this ice cream. Miss Granger, who had clear logic, stretched out her hand and took the ice cream that could bring refreshing summer from the hand of the guy opposite. And when she lowered her head to eat the jam on it, suddenly a hand gently held the back of her neck, and then a pair of warm lips lightly touched her forehead, and then left quickly. She raised her head and looked at that handsome and familiar face with wide eyes in astonishment. The most gentle thing is the gentleness of the lowered head, like a water lotus, shy in the cool breeze. The lips that had just passed over her forehead opened slightly and spoke a piece of Chinese that sounded very beautiful. Although Hermione didn't understand what was said, it didn't stop her from thinking it sounded good. What do you mean? Qin, is this a poem? Hermione said with a slight trembling in her voice. Yes, Qin Yu said and translated again in English. The most beautiful thing is when you lower your head. You look gentle at that moment, like a beautiful water lotus, shy when blown by a refreshing wind. The appearance. This poem is so beautiful. Hermione pursed her lips and said, Yes, this poem is beautiful, and it was you who made me think of this poem. Qin Yu looked into the little girl's eyes and said seriously. In fact, he felt that he had been a little impulsive just now. However, Hermione's look just now made him think of this poem. Poetry is beautiful, and people are even more beautiful. At that moment, he just wanted to kiss her forehead and read such a poem to her. Many years later, Hermione could still remember this day. She remembered that it was dusk and it was hot summer outside, and the handsome boy tried to make her happy with a delicious ice cream. Then, the moment she lowered her head, he kissed her forehead and read the poem. That poem was so beautiful that it filled her heart with a certain joy. This joy has been with her for many years, even if she was briefly separated, even if she was in danger, even if she witnessed the death of familiar people around her. Pain and death, even if despair strikes. But every time she thinks of this joy, she can go on tenaciously, because she wanted to hear him read a poem to her every day. Such a desire is simple yet strong. Meow, the ice cream finally melted, and the raspberry jam on top slid down the edge and fell on Crookshanks, making him make a dissatisfied sound. Ahem, Hermione, just now, Qin Yu really wanted to say that he might have had a cognitive deviation just now. However, before he said it, he felt that such words were simply stupid. So when the words came to his mouth, they turned into hesitation. Hermione smiled, handed the ice cream to Qin Yu, and said, You hold it for me first, and I'll wipe it for Crookshanks. Well, okay. Qin Yu nodded. Then, he pulled out his wand and cast a freezing spell on the ice cream. The ice cream that was originally melting quickly froze. That's amazing. Hermione's eyes widened, and she exclaimed in excitement. I'll teach you later, Qin Yu said with a smile. Yeah, okay. Hermione nodded sharply. Is it important to keep a little girl happy by not allowing free use of magic? Of course, this little magic spell will not attract the attention of the Ministry of Magic. After Hermione helped Crookshanks wipe off the raspberry jam and some cream, she took the ice cream from Qin Yu's hand again. Then, the little girl sat down, ate ice cream, petted the cat, and said, Crookshanks, if you don't want to call him uncle in the future, you can call him daddy. Meow/woo /. Crookshanks made a confused cry. What do you mean? Is it so difficult to change your mouth? Qin Yu said with a raised eyebrow. Meow. Crookshanks looked at the human boy with wide eyes. It was really difficult for him to understand what the two people were talking about. If you want to serve me, then serve me. What do you always say to me? Can I understand it, or what? Crookshanks thought grumblingly. Dimensional wall. The candy is also sprinkled. Can you give me a small gift, brother? The free one is fine. I can get a dime. If you're really not satisfied, I will think about it and get some knives. The requirements are not high, just the free one. If a few more people can give gifts, I will be excited. At least Malatang can order a deluxe meal for singles. Chapter 84. Sending Harry Potter the admission letter and taking him to Diagon Alley was just an interlude during the summer vacation. After that, Qin Yu and Hermione's life returned to what it was before, and because of what happened that day, it was definitely slightly different. Hermione, who loves learning, naturally focuses on learning magic knowledge. She wants to read all the books before the start of school and let Qin explain the contents. Of course, after studying, they will also have some leisure activities, such as sitting on the sofa in the living room and watching some TV programs. At this time, Hermione would lean on one end of the sofa and put her feet on Qin Yu's legs. This was a very comfortable position she had found. Qin Yu would pinch her toes from time to time and follow his instructions. In other words, this is Eastern acupressure. Well, Hermione felt that this magical oriental massage technique was indeed quite comfortable, and it always made her feel the smooth feeling of unblocking the meridians that Qin said. Or, she will pick up a novel or magazine. At this time, she will reverse her position so that her head rests on his tight legs, while her feet rest on the soft armrest at the other end of the sofa. Qin, it's very interesting here. When she saw the excitement of the story, she would read it to Qin Yu with a smile, and then exchange it for a grape or a sliced apple. Sometimes, just watching, she would fall asleep without even realizing it. Qin helped her cover her with a piece of clothing or a thin blanket. Once, she woke up and found herself lying on the bed in her room. After asking Qin, she found out that she had been sleeping in the living room for too long, so he took her into the bedroom. After that, she occasionally pretended to be asleep, and even pretended to unintentionally pull off the clothes or blankets he had covered her with. In this case, Qin could only carry her into the bedroom. She felt herself being held in his arms, as if she were on a gently floating boat. Whenever this happened, she would be a little nervous and her body would tighten subconsciously. However, she would try hard to restrain herself and let herself go. He really looked like he was asleep. Then, she was placed on the bed and felt Qin's two arms being pulled away from her back and the crook of her legs respectively. While lying on the bed, she originally expected him to kiss her forehead, a sleeping kiss or something like that. However, after waiting several times, she could not wait. Finally, once, after lying down, she couldn't help opening her eyes, hooked her arms around his neck, and gave him a gentle peck on the cheek. Then, under Qin Lu's stunned gaze, she closed her eyes in panic and murmured, "I was sleeping. I was just dreaming." That time, she finally got her wish and got a sleeping kiss on her forehead. Well, her nose was even scratched. At that moment, she really wanted to open her eyes. However, since she had just said that she was dreaming, she could not immediately prove that she was lying, so she had to keep her eyes closed. When Sister He is alive, she spits and nails, saying she is dreaming, then she must be dreaming. Then, his cheek was pinched, and then the familiar footsteps left the room, and she actually fell asleep in a daze. There is a saying that things should be said in sequence and words should be said in two parts. In other words, when the boy and girl in Granger's family were studying hard and spending their summer vacation leisurely, a swordsman wearing a black cloak stood at the northern tip of the African continent, in Egypt, on a cruise ship on the Nile, overlooking the ancient buildings in the desert. The swordsman shook his head and murmured, "Ian, I don't object to your enthusiasm for Eastern storytelling, but please don't call the cloak a cloak. I'm really not used to it." Then, the swordsman changed his voice again and said with a sinister smile, "Ho ho ho, Stephen, why are you still so rigid? I just hope that I can stay awake to a certain extent, so that I can temporarily forget that I am a madman." The swordsman changed to his original voice again and sighed. "Wow, so you still remember that you are a madman?" A sinister voice mocked. "Of course I remember. Then you still dream about going back? And writing to that guy dressed like a bat? That's my freedom. If I can find the legendary power, I think we should be able to separate." "Oh, I hope so. I don't want to share a body with you." The swordsman looked up at the sky, and the sun shone on his unshaven face. It was obvious that he had not taken care of his image for a long time. If Qin Yu were here at this time, he should be able to tell who he is from his eyes and facial contours. However, this person is very different from what Qin Yu remembered, because his face it is sometimes sunny and sometimes gloomy, constantly changing its temperament. In front of Qin Yu, he was called Stephen Swinton, and Qin Yu called him Professor Swinton, or, one time when he was drunk, he called him Second Brother. And he also has another name, Ian Stanley. Yes, he is a madman. When he was at Hogwarts, Stephen Swinton had always maintained a relatively stable state. The guy named Ian Stanley only came out for a breath of air occasionally. For example, when he went to the Centaur colony, Dumbledore they left for something, and the entire school's attention was drawn to the Quidditch match. In order to find a certain clue, the grumpy Ian Stanley took the initiative. Of course, the effect was good that time, and they found the one they wanted. Need clues. However, since leaving Hogwarts and embarking on a long-planned search, he has become increasingly unable to control Ian. After all, it was Ian who made them survive when they were very young. Now that they are embarking on that unknown road, Ian's consciousness has become stronger without knowing it. Stephen didn't think there was anything wrong with Ian. He just felt that the fact that he was a lunatic made him look a little pitiful. "Oh, useless cowardice," Ian said coldly. "You are wrong. I feel this way because of my expectations for the future," Stephen corrected. "Okay, your emotions are of no use to me," Ian said impatiently. As a result, the two people fell into silence. Soon, the cruise ship docked in a small city upstream. The crew shouted in broken English and introduced the special culture, food, and beautiful scenery of this small city. Swinton, or Stanley, who was wearing a black cloak and a long sword at his waist, was too lazy to pay attention to the crew's explanation and stepped off the ship from the gangway. His destination is not this small town, but the depths of the desert more than 100 kilometers away from this small town, so he doesn't care about what places are worth visiting here. Chapter 85. When the Muggles weren't paying attention, Stephen used disapparation several times. However, he restrained himself from using this spell out of fear of getting lost or not finding his target. Therefore, his speed was not fast and he arrived at that place before sunset. There, as far as the eye can see, there is yellow sand and undulating sand dunes. In addition, there is not even a cactus or anything like that. However, the map in his hand clearly told him that this was the destination of his trip. So, he pulled out his wand and chanted a difficult-to-pronounce spell. The wand traced a trajectory, and finally the tip of the wand pointed towards the sky ahead. Then, like a flash of light, a tall conical building appeared in front of him. That's a pyramid that only wizards can discover. Next to the pyramid, there are some temporary low shacks, which are like places for some people to work or live. However, there is no one here at this time. Yes, Bill Weasley and his Gringotts colleagues, as well as the treasure-hunting Nifflers, once worked here and witnessed a white light shooting into the sky from inside that day. Note: Shio is a magical animal that can hunt for treasures. They have a strong obsession with shiny things. After that, the place was quickly sealed by Gringotts, and no one was allowed to approach. However, at this time, an uninvited guest suddenly visited. Seeing the scene in front of him, Stephen nodded with satisfaction. After a brief pause, he walked in the direction of the pyramid. And when he came out again, it was already early morning the next day. He stood outside the pyramid, opened his arms in the direction of the sunrise, with a comfortable smile on his lips, and said in a low voice, "This feeling is really great. So, where to go next?" He looked at the yellow sand in his eyes, waved his wand, and the figure suddenly disappeared from the spot. The pyramid behind him quickly disappeared into the desert again, as if it had never appeared before. Cairo, Gringotts, Cursebreaker's office. This is not so much an office as a workshop, because this large room is filled with all kinds of objects, and those objects are very old at first glance. "Bill, I really envy you. You can go back to England this summer," a wizard with a beard and a rough face said. "Haha, what can be done about this? The boss arranged for me to send Adam to school in England, so I can only endure the fatigue of the journey," Bill said in a Versailles-like way. "There's no way around it. Being a Cursebreaker at Gringotts is a very hard job, and you rarely get the chance to go home." Bill, on the other hand, just came to Egypt last year. In the summer, he had to escort a batch of cursed treasures back to England. And this year, I went back again because I had to send Adam to school. How could this not make the wizards in the same office envious? Oh, by the way, Adam is a young Muggle-born wizard in Cairo. The first person to discover his identity as a wizard was Bill. After that, in order to gain favor among the local wizarding community, Gringotts provided key assistance to the child named Adam. Not only did it help him quickly understand all kinds of common sense in the wizarding world, but it also helped him apply for admission to Hogwarts through various connections. You know, Hogwarts is the best magic school in the world. Bill has always insisted on this, and how lucky he would be to study in this school. In order to handle things more appropriately, the local leadership of Gringotts in Cairo decided to send a capable young wizard to accompany Adam to the UK and send him on the Hogwarts Express on September 1st. and this task naturally fell on Bill, who now had the best relationship with Adam. Today is the day they leave for England. Bill, my mother's old habit has happened again. I have to accompany her to see the doctor. We can only leave another day. In an Egyptian house, a thin boy looked helpless and said sadly to Bill, "He is Adam Quinn, the little boy Bill will send to school in England this time." "Ah, Elsa is sick again? Is it serious? Do you want me to go with you?" Bill asked with concern. "No need. I can handle it." Adam showed a faint smile. Seeing the child smile, Bill felt relieved and nodded and said, "Well, you take care of your mother first, and we will leave after her condition is stable." "Yeah, thank you, Bill," Adam said obediently. "You're welcome, I told you. I will help you." Bill patted the child on the shoulder and said. After seeing off Bill, the little boy walked into the room inside. At this time, an Egyptian woman in her 30s was sitting in a wheelchair. She saw the little boy walking in, with a look of satisfaction and horror in his eyes. A panicked sound came from her throat. However, he couldn't even say a clear word. "My dear mother, I originally planned to leave here today, so that you don't have to be scared when you see me. However, it seems that someone went somewhere they shouldn't go today, and I have to go and take a look. Please be patient, wait a minute. I will leave here soon and go to the greatest magic school in the world." As Adam said these words, he picked up a clean towel with a gloved hand and carefully and gently helped the woman in the wheelchair wipe away the drool from her mouth due to excitement. As for this woman, her whole body could not help but tremble while he was wiping her. At the end, tears flowed out uncontrollably. Woo-woo, the woman let out a painful and sad whimper. After letting his mother fall asleep, Adam opened the door and left the house. Soon, his figure appeared in the desert. Soon, his figure appeared at the foot of a pyramid. Next to this pyramid, there are some temporary sheds. Then, he walked into the pyramid and came to a stone hall inside. In the center of the stone hall, there was a human-shaped sarcophagus with Egyptian characteristics. At this time, an unknown person opened the cover of the coffin and put it aside, revealing a body wrapped in thick linen inside. Mummy corpse. Adam approached the mummy with a curious look in his eyes. Suddenly, it seemed that there was some kind of unknown sound that sounded in this stone hall. Adam listened carefully for a while, nodded and said, "Oh, so you are a descendant of the agent?" Then, he listened for a while, shook his head and said, "Sorry, I can't make you wake up right now, but I can do you a small favor. You have to get out of here on your own." After saying this, he took off the woolen gloves on his hands, stood on tiptoes, and put his hand on the mummy's forehead. And on the back of his hand, there was a scar composed of circles and lightning. Dimensional wall. It's like filling in some of the previous holes, such as Swinton's origin, such as the little boy who woke up in Egypt. Then, this is the author's original line, which will not be expanded on too much for the time being. Chapter 86. "Okay, Hermione, you can rest," Mrs. Granger said to her daughter in the living room. "Hey, I'm going back to the room, Mom." Hermione put down the rag in her hand, went to the bathroom to wash her hands, and then stumbled back to her room. Today, the house is being cleaned, and she is responsible for wiping the furniture in the living room. After working hard for a long time, I wiped the tables, chairs, sofas, and cabinets, and now I can finally rest. After sitting down next to her desk, Hermione was stunned for a while, not knowing what she thought of, and a smile appeared on her lips unexpectedly. Then, she opened the drawer, found a notebook with a brown cover, took it out and spread it out on the table. Then, she found another pen and began to write on the blank page in her diary that she had not written for a long time. The handwriting falls on the paper. Sunday, August 26th, sunny. I haven't written a diary for a long time. I remember the last time I wrote a diary was the last time. Well, I must have been led astray by Qin. He often talks like this, so that when I write this diary now, I unconsciously have his style. But it's quite interesting, isn't it? Yes, every day with him is interesting. I still can't imagine that if one day we are separated for another year like before, even if he comes back for a few days in the middle, will I be able to bear the days when he is not around? Just like those 2 days at the end of July, when he was not at home and I was waiting for him to come back, especially after my parents went to work, I felt that the whole house was empty. At that time, I really wanted to know where he was and what he was doing. However, I could only wait stupidly at home, talking to Crookshanks stupidly and getting sulky. Thinking about it now, poor Crookshanks must have been annoyed to death by my mother. There is nothing he can do about it, because his father is not at home. Writing this, Hermione smiled, picked up a quill on the table, and used the end of the feather to tease Crookshanks, who was napping on the table. After discovering the feather, the little yellow cat immediately she cheered up and stretched out her claws to pounce on the feather. After playing with it for a while, the girl continued writing. I remember Qin said that in the future, when the technology of the ordinary human world reaches a certain level, people will be able to conduct video communications through a phone-like device. If you think about it this way, it is also a very magical technological magic. Qin also said that the Weasley twin brothers are also working on similar things. If that kind of magic device is connected to the Flu network, then no matter how far away he is from me, we can see each other clearly. But why do we have to be so far apart? I hope we can always be together every day, at least, not be apart for more than a few hours. For example, he is not at home now, but he went with his father to the hardware store in the next block to buy some tools and materials to repair the fence outside the house. I know he will be back soon. Here, Hermione paused again, looked up at the rickety wooden fence outside the house, and then continued writing. I forgot to mention that there was a big storm in London last night. It was raining heavily, there was lightning and thunder, and the attic where Qin lived leaked. So, I suggested that he could come to my room and squeeze in. After thinking carefully for a while, my parents agreed to the proposal. After all, I used to occasionally spend the night in Qin's room. It was not too strange for him to go to my room. However, he seemed very nervous and insisted on putting a pillow between us as a separation, saying that he would never sleep on more than this pillow. Qin was right, he did not exceed that pillow. However, he did not ask me to exceed it. So, I leaned over. Who made the storm last night so scary? If I didn't get closer to him, how could I possibly sleep, right? Writing this, Hermione touched her face and felt a little warm. She went to the living room to get a glass of water and came back, took a few sips, thought for a while, and then continued writing. In short, as my mother said, I don't need to deliberately keep a distance from Qin, and I don't need to be nervous about anything, as long as I don't do that thing, because that is what I can do when I grow up. My mother also said that I probably got close to Qin just because I got used to his existence. However, I don't think so. I feel that the appearance of Qin not only accompanied me, but also allowed me to see a new world and find another myself. Moreover, I want to see more of the world with him and listen to more stories he tells. I don't know. Does he think so too? If he doesn't think so, I will cry. Qin is most afraid of seeing me cry. As long as I cry, he will agree to anything. Hermione pauses again, and after a moment of daze, shakes her head. No, I can't blackmail him by crying. That's not good. But what can I do? The pen tip stayed on the notebook for a long time, and the ink smudged the white paper. Harry Potter? Elvis? Hermione crosses out both names and continues writing. Elvis's letters, on average, come one a week. They all ask questions about magic, especially those related to potions, and don't contain much other content. As for Harry Potter, it seemed that he had just learned how to send messages with an owl. His owl named Hedwig almost hit the ceiling of the living room at home, which was really rash. However, Trig seemed to like the owl, which was all white like him, and often flew around her. In short, the content of what Harry Potter wrote was very unfocused. He was always complaining that the vacation was not over yet, and he wrote words such as, "Hope to see you soon," in every letter. If I see him, I must take a good look at what kind of person he is. Okay, don't think about this anymore. Write something else. Hermione glances at the calendar on the wall. September 1st is marked with a red circle. School starts in less than a week. Thinking about going to that magic school soon, I was actually a little nervous. However, I never told Qin this. I'm worried that no one will like me here just like at the previous school. However, at least Qin is there. Even if no one else cares about me, it would be nice to have him here. Well, if I tell Qin this, he will definitely say that I am worthless, because in his eyes, I can overcome any difficulty. He always said that he believed I would become the best wizard in the world. He doesn't know where his confidence comes from. However, looking into his eyes, I seem to really gain a lot of strength. Then, if there are difficulties in the future, I will think about his eyes. In that case, I may be instantly full of strength. Hermione, come out and do me a favor. Mrs. Granger's voice sounded. Okay, Mum. Give me a minute. Hermione replied. Just write it here. My mother is calling me. Moreover, Qin should be back soon. I'll go see if I can be of any help later. Next time I write in my diary, I should already be at Hogwarts. Well, hopefully the next time I write in my diary, I'll be by the fireplace in the Gryffindor common room, and Qin will be there. Dimensional wall. It's like writing from a different angle and explaining some things. Well, Summer vacation is coming to an end soon. Thank you, Zhang for one completed 66, 10 love letters, 6 cups of milk tea, and 6 likes. I just found out that there is such a big wave of gifts. Thank you very much. Thank you to every reader who sent a gift. The space here is limited, so I can't thank you all. Your support is the driving force for me to move forward. Well, the next chapter will probably be posted tomorrow morning. I'm really stuck. I'll figure it out. Chapter 87. There is only one village in the UK where pure wizards live, and that is Hogsmeade next to Hogwarts. Then there are some villages where half-wizards live among tolerant or confused muggles, such as the village of Ottery St. Catchpole in Devon. It was near this village on the south coast of England that a multi-story building that looked like a haphazard construction stood there, as if it would fall down at any time if it was blown by the wind. Of course, this haphazardly built multi-story building is actually very solid, because its builder is a wizard. It is a house that has been enchanted. This house has a name that belongs to it, called the Burrow. The family named Weasley lived in the Burrow. As many people know, the Weasley family has a long heritage, and the surname Weasley represents justice, loyalty, bravery, hard work, kindness, and poverty in the wizarding world. And today, the Weasley house welcomed a guest from afar. This guest was brought from faraway Egypt by Bill Weasley, the eldest son of the Weasley family. We went through several portkey transmissions and took Muggle transportation, and then we got here before sunset, Bill said with a tired smile while drinking the tea handed over by his mother. He was very happy to be able to go home again. Portkey is a magical item that can transport people from one place to another. It is somewhat similar to the Flu network. However, portkey is generally used for long-distance transmission. Molly Weasley looked at her eldest son, touched his head distressedly, and then muttered, "Your hair is really messy. I'll trim it for you later." When Bill heard this, he smiled helplessly at his brothers and sisters. Well, the familiar maternal love is back. Of course, the hostess Molly did not ignore their little guest, the little boy named Adam who looked very well-behaved, quiet, and polite. "Adam, we have limited resources at home. You probably need to sleep with Bill in the bedroom on the 4th floor. Or, you can live with Ron. You are the same age, so we can probably chat." Molly Weasley, he said to the little boy in an apologetic tone. "Mom," Ron said anxiously after hearing this. His small room is a bit messy now, and he doesn't really want to sleep in the same bed with this strange boy. "Thank you for taking care of me, Mrs. Weasley. It's fine for me to live with Bill. This is what we discussed on the way here." The little boy Adam glanced at Ron with a smile and said to Molly Weasley said politely, "Well, it's decided. I'll clean up your room." Before Mrs. Weasley went upstairs, she shouted to her youngest son, "Ron, get Adam some food. Don't neglect the guests." George and Fred were also idle, so why should I go? Ron complained in his heart, but did not dare to say anything after all, and then went to get food for the guests with a slumped face. In the evening, the 8 Weasleys, Charlie was not at home, and their little guest Adam, a total of 9 people, sat around the dining table together, eating a table full of delicious meals. The topic of everyone's chat mainly revolved around Bill and the little guest. When Bill came back this time, he naturally brought some small gifts to his family. Of course, they were not too expensive. Some of them were made by himself, or were things he was allowed to keep when he solved the cursed treasure. These gifts made his brother the sisters were very happy. He liked the little pyramid you gave to Qin last time. He also studied it with Professor Swinton in the school for a long time. I heard that Professor Snape also helped a lot, Fred or George said. The 2 brothers look so much alike that even family members often get them confused. Professor Swinton? Bill frowned slightly when he heard this, showing a puzzled expression. Professor Swinton is the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher who came to the school last year. This professor is young and promising, and he is very knowledgeable. I often ask him questions, but he only taught for a year and then left. This is consistent, said by the very studious Percy Weasley. Percy is the 3rd eldest son of the Weasley family. He has Bill, the academic master, and Charlie, the Quidditch captain. He has always been under pressure and has always worked hard to push himself. Of course, this year, Percy got his wish and became the prefect of Gryffindor, which gave him a small sense of accomplishment. Oh, that's it. What I didn't expect was that Professor Snape was also interested in this. Bill probably thought of Professor Snape's cold face, and there was a look of memory in his eyes. Look, although Bill graduated more than a year ago, he still misses his days at Hogwarts. Even the frosty Professor Snape feels a bit warm when he thinks about it. Hey, you don't know what kind of person Qin is. All the professors in the school are paying more attention to him. Well, how should I put it? Especially Professor Swinton and Professor Snape. They have always had a good relationship with Qin, one of the twins said to Bill, and then added, Bill, I am Fred. I know, you must not have noticed. Well, Bill, I'm George. Yes, we also heard some gossip. Before the summer vacation, something seemed to have happened between the three of them. Since then, Professor Snape has I don't talk much to Professor Qin and Swinton anymore, another of the twins said. Unfortunately, when we asked Qin, he refused to tell us whether he was dead or alive. If he kept asking, he would tie us to the Whomping Willow. One of the twins who called himself Fred shrugged. It seems you have a pretty good relationship with Qin? Bill asked curiously. Not only is that good, they are Qin's loyal supporters. The three of them stay together all day long and often go to Hagrid's cabin to tinker with some things. Of course, there is also Charlie, who recruited Qin into the Quidditch team. And Qin played a decisive role in several games. Charlie really likes him, Percy interjected. Oh, I didn't expect there to be so many stories between you two. Bill's eyes lit up after hearing this. Among all the people present, Bill was the first to know Qin Yu, but they had only met briefly twice. The impression left on him by that little Oriental boy was that he was cheerful, polite, and looked very smart. This reminded Bill of Adam again. They were both very smart children, but Adam was more introverted, unlike Qin, who gave people a sunny and cheerful feeling. By the way, Adam, we have to go to Diagon Alley before school starts. Gringotts gave me a sum of money that I can use to help you buy things for school, Bill said to Adam. Hearing this, Ron immediately raised his head and cast an envious look. Because almost all the things he needed to start school were used by his brothers, such as Bill's old robe, Charlie's old wand, George and Fred's old textbooks, and even the crucible was discarded by Percy. Well, there is also the pet, which is a mouse that Percy had raised and was left at home to be fed by him last year. Why can't I have something new? Thinking of this, Ron's little face became bitter again. George and Fred looked at their brother like this, looked at each other, and tried not to laugh. Then, they casually told Bill that they also wanted to go shopping in Diagon Alley, and whether they wanted to buy something or not was another matter. It's to relax. Ron, come along. Let's see if there are any new broomsticks, wands, or beautiful robes. The one in the twin who called himself George said to his younger brother. No, just hang out. I'll wait for you at the Leaky Cauldron. Ron curled his lips and said. In the next few days, Adam stayed at the Weasley family and received good care. The hostess, Molly Weasley, even treated him with care and kindness and was closer to him than to her own son. In fact, his biological son Ron is not very envious. After all, even without Adam, his mother still has a bad attitude towards her all day long and is always mean to her. Well, he is used to this kind of maternal love. Then, he sometimes felt that Adam was weird. For example, once he heard the little boy seem to be chatting with the mouse Spot. Why are you staying in this house like this? Are you hiding from something? This is what Adam said. Ron felt that Adam might have disliked Scabbers' somewhat embarrassed appearance because the mouse was so old that it had begun to shed its hair and was missing a toe. It looked listless and sleepy all day long. However, after that day, Scabbers stayed away from Adam when he saw him. Even if Ron tried his best to appease him, it was of no use. Chapter 88. September 1st is the opening day of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Before 11 o'clock in the morning, there will be a Wizarding World Express train waiting at Platform 9 3/4 of King's Cross Station in London to pick up the wizard students to school. The little wizards need to go through the wall between Platform 9 and Platform 10 after entering the station to reach that special platform. That morning, Mrs. Granger sent Qin Yu and Hermione to the entrance outside the station. Then, watching the two children walk into the station, Mrs. Granger finally couldn't help covering her mouth and crying. Last year, one of them was sent away, but this year they both left. Mrs. Granger couldn't stand it anymore as she watched Qin pushing his luggage and Hermione gradually disappearing into the crowd. Jenny, they will be back soon. Mr. Granger put his arm around his wife's shoulders and comforted her. But, I'm really worried about Hermione, Mrs. Granger said, sobbing on her husband's chest. This is the first time that my daughter has been away from the two of them for such a long time, and she will not be able to come back until Christmas vacation. It's no problem. With Qin here, I believe he will take good care of Hermione. Mr. Granger gently stroked his wife's back and continued to comfort her. Yes, even Mr. Granger would be worried if his daughter went to school in such a far and mysterious place alone. However, Qin has always been very reliable, especially after a year of study, he has become more and more calm. Now, Mr. Granger feels that it is reassuring for his daughter to be taken care of by Qin. His words obviously had an effect, and Mrs. Granger quickly calmed down. Well, Ginny, while these two little guys are away, I think we can think about our plans for this weekend. Mr. Granger took advantage of the victory and said to his wife with a smile. Plans for this weekend? Mrs. Granger murmured, blushing at the end. The two have been married for many years, so how could she not understand what her husband meant? Yes, we can go out for a walk this weekend. I heard that the town of Cokeworth is pretty good. We can go there for 2 days. Mr. Granger said his thoughts. Well, I think this is a good idea. Mrs. Granger nodded, pretending to be calm, but she had already begun to fantasize about many things in her heart. Yes, since they had their daughter, it seems that the two of them haven't planned a weekend like this for a long time. Mrs. Granger was originally a little depressed because her daughter went to school and traveled far away, but her husband's words diluted it a lot, and she had some expectations for the upcoming world of the two of them. Haha, Harry, go in and find your platform 9 3/4. I hope that platform has been built recently. A person's laughing voice reached the ears of the Grangers. Following the sound, they turned around and saw a fat middle-aged man putting a heavy suitcase on the cart and handing the cart to a black-haired boy wearing glasses. The fat man noticed someone looking at him, so he looked curiously towards the Grangers. The Grangers smiled at the man and nodded. After all, anyone who can name platform 9 3/4 is probably the parent of the little wizard. The fat man was stunned for a moment, nodded to them, and then, as if he didn't want to communicate too much with them, left quickly and got into a car parked not far away. The little boy wearing glasses pushed the car into the station alone, probably looking for that special platform. Qin Yu and Hermione waited for Harry Potter by the wall between platform 9 and platform 10. This was the agreement they made in the letter, because Harry Potter didn't know where the station was. Qin, we finally meet again, Harry said excitedly after seeing Qin Yu. During the remaining month of the summer vacation, he was looking forward to this day coming soon, because his life at his uncle's and aunt's house was not pleasant. Even though they had some changes in their view of him, he became more and more like an outsider. You look good, Harry. Qin Yu looked at the boy and felt that he was much better, at least not as tired as when they first met. Hi, Harry Potter. I'm Hermione, Hermione Granger. Hermione took the initiative to greet Harry Potter and held out her hand solemnly. I was just guessing that you must be Hermione. Nice to meet you. Harry quickly reached out his hand and shook it politely. Huh, you know my name? Hermione was a little surprised. Of course, you are Qin's sister. He told me about you. I have always wanted to get to know you, Harry said happily. Oh, so that's it? So what did he say about me? After Hermione said this, she looked at Qin Yu with a smile on her face and narrowed her eyes. Qin Yu's heart skipped a beat. He thought about it carefully, and it seemed that Hermione was only mentioned in the underground vault of Gringotts. Moreover, at that time, I encountered a forced retracement triggered by myself, and I should have said a lot of bad things about this girl, such as being greedy, sleeping dishonestly, eating my fingers while reading, and so on. However, fortunately, I made corrections the last time and didn't say anything too outrageous. He said that you have a good relationship. We often go shopping together and eat a lot of delicious food together in Diagon Alley. Harry briefly repeated what Qin Yu said about Hermione before. Hermione listened and nodded with satisfaction, then took Qin Yu's hand, raised her chin, and snorted arrogantly at him. Okay, we should go in. Qin Yu rubbed the girl's little hand twice and urged. Yeah, it's time to go. Hermione blushed slightly and said naturally. Then, how do we go? Harry scratched his head and asked. He really didn't know where Platform 9 and March 4th was. However, he didn't worry too much, because Qin was here, and he certainly couldn't lose him. Just as the three of them were about to enter the platform, two voices shouted, Qin, wait for us. Qin, we are here. Harry looked back and saw that there were two red-haired boys who looked exactly the same. They were taller than him and about the same height as Qin. And behind them, there was a group of people. George, Fred. Hello, Mrs. Weasley. Bill, Percy, Ron, Ginny, and this little brother. Qin Yu felt that, among other things, greeting the Weasley family was indeed a bit tiring. The Weasley family also greeted Qin Yu with a smile, and Mrs. Weasley enthusiastically praised Qin for becoming more handsome and taller again. Bill, why are you back again? Qin Yu asked this question. Although your words sound strange, I must explain that I came back for serious reasons, Bill said, introducing the little boy next to him. This is Adam, a young wizard from an Egyptian Muggle family. I was appointed by the local Gringotts in Egypt to send Adam to school. Hello, Adam. Nice to meet you. Qin Yu greeted the little boy. Hello, Qin. Nice to meet you too. Adam replied politely. Qin Yu was actually somewhat puzzled, because even though he didn't know exactly who the students of Hermione's class were in his previous life, but with such a close relationship with the Weasley family, he seemed to have never heard of anyone named Adam. However, it cannot be ruled out that it is due to the butterfly effect or differences in parallel time and space. After all, Hermione in this world already knew her identity as a wizard before receiving the notification, right? This thought flashed across his mind. Qin Yu was about to introduce Hermione when the Weasley twins said, "This beautiful little girl must be Hermione." We didn't see clearly in the last photo, but we finally saw it this time. Myself. Qin Yu actually saved some of the introduction process. Hermione also sighed with emotion that she was already famous. Thinking of this, the little girl looked at Qin beside her and secretly stroked his hand. However, this guy didn't seem to have any special reaction, which made her somewhat discouraged. Dimensional wall. There is a plot that is not very easy to handle. Then, it has been stuck for a long time, and I have been a little busy recently, so the update is not timely. Please forgive me. Then, I would like to thank everyone for the small gifts. I really don't expect a big reward. The author is very grateful to everyone for sending flowers with their love and balance. Recently, I not only ate malatang, but also braised huang. I ordered a big portion of the chicken. In short, thank you all for your support. Your support is the driving force for me to move forward. Chapter 89. If Qin Yu was not Qin Yu, then he would probably feel that this person named Qin Yu would be a little embarrassed to meet Ron. However, he is indeed Qin Yu himself. After more than a year of getting along and going back in time 39 times, Qin Yu was convinced that he had nothing to struggle with on certain things. What should I choose between letting Hermione stay with me or seeing her with someone else? This is a very simple multiple-choice question. Even if the system that calls itself the selection system doesn't give out selection tasks, ding ding ding, Qin Yu still knows how to choose. He chose to live this life freely. He chooses to protect the people he wants to protect. When he chooses her, no one can rob her. No one can take her away. Moreover, he was convinced that the girl had entered his heart, and he had also entered her heart. If, in the end, it was just his own wishful thinking, then he would admit it. However, when he thought of this, his heart palpitated inexplicably, and a certain force in his body that had not been moving for a long time began to stir. That is one of the biggest secrets in him, and it is also something he strives to overcome. Obscurus. That power was powerful, mysterious, frightening, and at the same time full of temptation. If he gives himself over to it, then, for him, there will be no more problems in this world. So, why do I still work so hard to live? Leave it to it. Leave everything to it. Qin. Hermione's voice seemed to come from a very far-away place. Qin Yu turned to look at her blankly, feeling that although she was close at hand, she seemed far away. Qin. What's wrong with you? Hermione called him again. This time, her voice was filled with anxiety, and her delicate brows were tightly knitted. Qin Yu subconsciously raised a hand, gently smoothed the girl's frown, and murmured, "Don't be afraid, Hermione." With this movement, his expression changed, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Then, he held the girl in front of him in his arms, closed his eyes, and smelled the smell of her hair greedily and deeply, until the familiar breath entered the nasal cavity, stimulating the nerve endings to send out complex and regular electrical signals. Then, the series of electrical signals were transmitted to the nerve center, awakening his brain on the edge of chaos. Hermione also hugged him tightly, and said with a trembling cry in her voice, "Qin, what happened to you just now? I told you a lot, but you ignored me? I was a little distracted just now. I'm sorry, Hermione, for making you worry." Qin Yu gently stroked the girl's hair, and said softly and apologized. "Well, I hope you're okay." Hermione nuzzled into his arms and smelled his scent between breaths, which quickly made her feel at ease. Of course, Hermione knew that Qin had a secret. After all, his appearance and subsequent actions made it difficult for her to believe that he was just an ordinary wizard. Of course, wizards themselves are not ordinary. However, she believed that Qin's refusal to tell her must be due to some special reason, so she could wait for him to tell her those secrets in person one day. But before that, as long as he can do well. "Hey, Qin, the train is leaving soon. Are you really not going to leave?" One of the Weasley twins couldn't help shouting. "You guys have to go to school together anyway. There's no need to do it like this at the station." The other twin rolled his eyes and said helplessly. At this time, it was already 10:55, and the Weasley family began to enter Platform 9 and march forth. At this time, George and Fred discovered that Qin Yu and the little girl Hermione were still writing ink behind them. Then, when they saw this scene, they felt like they were being fed a mouthful of dog food. When the two brothers shouted, everyone else looked over. Hermione quickly struggled out of Qin Yu's arms, while Qin Yu continued to hold her little hand without blushing or heartbeat. I know, you go over first and we will follow later, Qin Yu said to the two brothers. Everyone smiled and said nothing more. The little boy Adam, who was following Bill, looked at Qin Yu a few more times when no one was paying attention and murmured to himself in a voice that only he could hear, "Sure enough, come here." It was the right decision. I met so many interesting people before I even got to that school. Okay, George, you go in first, Mrs. Weasley said to one of her sons. Mom, I'm Fred. As our mother, how come you can't even admit who I am? The guy said with a hurt look on his face. Yes, Mom, I am George. Another one also said. Mrs. Weasley snorted coldly and said, George, Fred, you have been playing this trick for several days. Do you think I still believe it? It's true this time. You should know that my nose is slightly higher than Fred's. If you don't believe me, take a look. One of the twins pointed to his nose and got closer. Show Mrs. Weasley. When Mrs. Weasley heard this, she looked at him hesitantly and then said in an uncertain tone, It seems like this. I'm sorry, George. It was Mother who admitted her mistake. The child pushed the luggage trolley to the wall. Before entering, he gave his mother a bright smile and said, Mom, I'm kidding you. Actually, I'm really Fred. After saying this, the guy greased the soles of his feet and penetrated the wall. George also made a face at his mother, and everyone followed closely and passed through. Mrs. Weasley was breathing heavily. Harry, Adam, Ron, come one by one, she said to the three little boys. After the three little boys passed, Bill also followed. Mrs. Weasley nodded to Qin Yu and went in with Ginny. Let's go, Hermione, Qin Yu said to the girl. Yeah. Hermione nodded. Immediately, Qin Yu pulled her and stepped into the wall together. When entering the wall, Qin Yu clearly felt that the little hand he was holding became a little nervous. After passing through the wall, they saw a dark red steam train parked there, and the platform was noisy and crowded with people. Looking at this very retro train and the hordes of wizards, Hermione's eyes widened with an expression of surprise and curiosity. Not far away, Harry Potter looked similar. He had received special care from Mrs. Weasley, and brothers George and Fred helped him move the heavy suitcase. Before Harry got on the bus, he originally wanted to ask Qin Yu if he could sit with him, who knew that George and Fred were too enthusiastic and directly packed him into a box with Ron and Adam. The three of you are all in the same class, so it's just a good time to get acquainted with each other in advance, Fred said. That's right, you might be assigned to the same college. Let's get along well, George also said. Then, the two of them patted their butts and left. The two brothers were going to find their friend Lee Jordan. They heard that this boy had obtained a huge bag spider. Although they had even seen top-notch things like Acromantula's body to be precise, but I am still a little interested in this poisonous spider from South Africa. After Hermione followed Qin Yu into the car, she discovered that many people, whether they were seniors or juniors, boys or girls, would greet Qin enthusiastically after seeing him. Many girls looked at herself being pulled by Qin Yu and cast complicated looks, which made Hermione feel nervous for no reason. However, she quickly adjusted her mentality, followed Qin calmly through the crowd with a smile. Then, as she walked, she inexplicably thought of a story Qin had told her about a fox hiding behind a tiger to show off his power. Then, he is now the little fox hiding behind Qin. You see, there is a red-haired guy over there who was scared away after seeing Qin. After walking for a while, Qin Yu and Hermione found an empty box with no one around. He put away their luggage. When the box door was opened again, the room became much quieter in an instant. Dimensional wall. As an author, I definitely sympathize with someone who has had his wife taken away from him. However, as the protagonist, Qin Yu cannot have such entanglements. Well, I can no longer control this kid Qin, so what he does has nothing to do with me. Finally, I would like to express my gratitude to God for being certified as a great master by God's reason, and thank you to every reader who sent gifts, reminders, and comments. Chapter 90. Are you Elvis? Hermione said to the boy who had just entered. Yes, hello. You must be Hermione, right? Elvis said nervously. Yes, I'm Hermione. Nice to meet you. Hermione Jane Granger smiled at the boy and held out a hand. Elvis quickly shook hands and stammered, "I'm also very, very happy to meet you." For some reason, Elvis felt a little guilty in front of this little girl. Then, he thought about what he had done in the past year, especially when he thought about the fact that he leaked a lot of Qin's information to those girls. He suddenly felt a chill on his back and broke out in a cold sweat. Did I do something I shouldn't have done? Elvis muttered to himself. Based on this understanding, as well as his unexplained guilt and fear of a certain little girl, Elvis gave up the idea of staying in this box for a while, and after chatting with Qin Yu and Hermione for a few words, left reluctantly. Elvis was not the first person to come to this box, and certainly not the last. After Qin Yu closed the door of the box, before he could whisper a few words to Hermione and introduce the places he passed along the way, the door of the box was knocked from time to time, and the people who came were all familiar people. In addition to Elvis, there are also Jimmy, Burke, Wilson, and several teammates on the Quidditch team, such as the new Captain Wood, chasers Angelina Johnson and Katie Bell, among whom Katie Bell was discovered by Wood at the end of last school year and has great talent as a chaser. There is also Moni Wanda, a non-staff member of the Gryffindor Quidditch team. Because she was particularly biased against the Gryffindor team in a certain game, she was disqualified as a commentator by Professor McGonagall. Okay, I'm going to see Ron. I heard from Fred and George that Ron is crying. When Moni said this, she didn't have any sympathy for her distant cousin. Instead, she looked optimistic. The look of a play. Qin Yu was also speechless about this distant cousin of the Weasley family. Soon, Fred and George came over and told Qin Yu about the South African poisonous spider owned by their classmate Lee Jordan. The toxicity is average, far worse than the acromantula, George said. It can only be kept as a pet. Fred shrugged. The two of them had been raising magical animals with Hagrid for a year, and their horizons had long been opened, and they looked down upon these gadgets to a certain extent. After saying this, Qin Yu couldn't help but care about why Ron was crying. He discovered his wand is new, George said, raising his eyebrows. Then, I found that many things in the suitcase were also new, Fred continued. Well, we originally thought that we would discover this when he was almost at school, but we didn't expect that we would notice it so early, George said with some disappointment, as if his happiness was half lost. Yes, we kept it secret for a long time and did a lot of cover-ups. Even when he tried on the robe in Diagon Alley, he was almost bored to death, so we held back and didn't say we really wanted to buy it. Fred also sighed. He took a breath and said disappointedly. When Qin Yu heard this, he was sweating all over his forehead. These two guys are really devoting themselves wholeheartedly to the business of pranking others, and they don't even spare their own brother. Fortunately, the actions of the two brothers were not based on malice or harm, and the reason why Ron cried when he saw those new wands and new robes was probably because he was crying with happiness and joy. Well, Qin Yu could only say, let them be. He couldn't control the way the Weasley children got along. Ron gets along well with that Harry Potter. I didn't expect them to be able to chat, Fred said happily. I hope this kid can cheer up at school, George said in a slower tone. Although the Weasley twins laugh and laugh all day long, they are actually very meticulous at heart. Since they were young, they have determined to engage in business and make a lot of money, which is more or less related to the poor economic conditions at home. Now, with Qin Yu's guidance and help, the two of them have made some money. Naturally, they want to improve their lives for their younger siblings. Buying Ron a new wand, a new robe, and a new crucible is what they can currently do. Of course, this does not prevent them from pranking Ron, by the way. Don't worry, Ron is your brother. That is, my brother. When he goes to Hogwarts, I will help you take good care of him, Qin Yu said to the Weasley brothers. George and Fred laughed and said that with Qin's words, Ron could walk sideways in Hogwarts. What kind of messy description is this? Could it be that I have become the tyrant of Hogwarts? Qin Yu couldn't help complaining in his heart. However, when he thought about it, these seemed to be mentioned in the stories he had told the two guys, and now they used them on himself. Okay, we won't disturb you anymore. Bye. Fred waved to Qin Yu and Hermione. See you at school. George also stood up and said goodbye to them. Hermione quickly smiled and waved, watching the two of them leave. However, as soon as the door of the box was closed, it was opened a crack, and the heads of George and Fred appeared there. Seriously, do you need to put something on the door? One of the heads said. What? Qin Yu regretted it after asking. Sure enough, the two heads said in unison. Do not disturb. This is a common slogan for hotels in the Muggle world. Hermione had already known it when traveling with her parents, not to mention Qin Yu. As a result, The two of them instantly understood the meaning of these idiot words. Crack! Before Qin Yu became angry, the box door was closed again, and the Weasley twins hurried away. Oh, some two people are jumping sideways repeatedly on the edge of death. Their two personalities are like this. In fact, they are quite good people. It will be fine as long as you get used to it, Qin Yu explained to Hermione with a headache. Well, I quite like them. They are very lively, Hermione said with a smile. She believes that since these two people have such a good relationship with Qin, they must be very good people. So, you don't have to pay too much attention to what they say. Qin Yu added. Who knows, Hermione said seriously. How about, as they said, let's find a piece of paper and stick it outside. Huh. Qin Yu was stunned when he heard this. However, he soon saw a cunning look flashing in the girl's eyes. So, Qin Yu rubbed her head and said angrily, What are you talking about? Hermione leaned into his arms, rubbed her little face against his and muttered, Who lets those people come in all the time? Yes, what was originally a nice private room for two has almost become a mobile living room. Of course, Hermione just said that when someone came in again, she immediately transformed into the cute Qin sister. Especially the guy named Cedric. When he came in, Hermione cheered up because this guy always looked at Qin with that look. Fortunately, the man just sat there for a while and then left. Before leaving, he insisted on giving Qin a hug and said he missed him very much. It seems that Qin is really popular at Hogwarts. Hermione came to this conclusion again in her mind. Then, the expression on her face became complicated and solemn. Chapter 91. Time goes a little further. By the way, Harry, Ron and Adam were originally quiet in that box, with no one speaking. Harry was a little shy, and Ron didn't know how to talk to this celebrity and didn't want to say anything to Adam. Adam was fine with whatever he wanted, and just sat quietly and watched the scenery when no one spoke. Finally, not long after arriving, Ron couldn't bear the silence in the carriage anymore. He cleared his throat and said to Harry, Are you really Harry Potter? Qin Yu had just introduced Harry to the Weasley family. Mrs. Weasley was very enthusiastic about him, but Ron still couldn't believe it, because Harry Potter seemed to be a legendary figure in the story, and now he was actually in the same train compartment as him and sitting across from each other. Of course. Harry was not surprised by Ron's reaction, because there were many people who were similar to Ron at the Leaky Cauldron, or even more exaggerated. He didn't say much and lifted up the lock of hair on his forehead with great experience, because this was his most obvious physical mark. Ron's eyes widened when he saw the lightning scar on Harry's face. Even Adam, who was leaning against the window and looking at the scenery, cast a look with some curiosity and concern. So, this was really done by the mysterious man? You really escaped from his hands. Ron's mouth was a little bit open. It should be like this. Harry paused, shrugged and said, But I really don't remember what happened that day. I only remember there was a dazzling green light. That's it. It's a very terrible curse. It can only be cast by an evil and powerful wizard, Ron said, using staring directly at Harry. However, such gaze made Harry feel slightly uncomfortable. Ron quickly realized this and said sheepishly, I'm sorry, Harry. I'm a little too excited. You also know, you are really famous. Well, it's okay, Harry said with a smile. Then, now that they were chatting, Harry couldn't help but curiously asked about Ron's family background. After all, the 6 red-haired children in that family were so eye-catching that anyone would want to know about them. So Ron started to complain, talking about his troubles of being born in a family with many children. You didn't see Charlie today because he went to Romania to study fire dragons. Therefore, our family has 7 children. I have 5 brothers and a sister. You should know that my sister has always been that little girl looking at you curiously. Then, Ron talked about the pressure his brothers put on him. Of course, he was numb now and even chose to lie down. However, Harry expressed that he was envious of having so many brothers. When you have so many older brothers, you know you can never have something new. Like, I'm wearing Bill's robes when he was a kid, and I'm using Charlie's old wand. In fact, I also raised a mouse which they left to me, but when I left home, it hid somewhere and I couldn't find it. Well, I'm not afraid you'll laugh at me. I can show you how old my wand is. It even has the core inside. Ron said this, probably to dispel Harry's envy. So he opened the suitcase a crack, fumbled a few times, and quickly took out a thin wooden stick from inside. Look, am I right? Its exterior is worn, and the tip of the wand. You should be able to see the unicorn hair inside, Ron said as he handed the wand to Harry. Moreover, when he said this, he turned his head to the side, because he could probably guess that Harry would have a sympathetic or pitiful expression at this time, and he didn't want to see that. Therefore, he felt a little regretful and felt that he should not expose his poverty and embarrassment in front of new acquaintances. However, he couldn't explain why, but he really wanted to be calmer in front of Harry. But his mentality was still not strong enough after all. Then, just as Ron was thinking about these things, he heard Harry Potter say in a hesitant tone, Ron, this wand doesn't seem to be old, right? It looks very old to me. It's new. Tisk, how can it be possible, Ron originally wanted to sneer, but when he turned around halfway through his words, he saw that he was actually holding a brand new wand in his hand, and his tone also changed from sneer to astonishment. Then, he subconsciously looked at Adam. The latter looked calm and said to him in a light tone, "You should be able to guess it." Ron immediately thought about what happened yesterday when his family and Adam went to Diagon Alley. At that time, Fred and George insisted on dragging him to visit those shops and even tried out a wand at Ollivander's. Magic wand, but after trying it, they didn't buy it. He looked at the brand new wand in his hand again and found that it looked very familiar. It was clearly the one he had tried out in the wand shop. And yesterday, they also visited other stores. So, he put the wand into his arms, quickly pulled out the suitcase, opened it, and took a look. There are indeed all brand new things there. New robes, new cloaks, new pointed hats, new crucibles and brass scales. And on top of those new things, there was a note that read, "Haha, be surprised, Ronnie," Ron's nickname. There is a signature at the end. F and G, it's the initials of Fred and George. Thinking about the impatience he felt when being dragged shopping by the two of them yesterday, as well as the vague inferiority complex in his heart, he then looked at the new things in the suitcase. He could even see a small pile of gold galleons in the corner. Ron was just a child after all, so he couldn't hold back. Tears burst out of his eyes, and he began to cry. Ron, are you okay? Harry was stunned by this little boy. He didn't know why the other boys started crying as he spoke. "It's okay, Harry. Woo-woo, I'll just cry for a while." "Woo-woo, Fred and George. They are so bad. They know how to bully me," Ron said intermittently while wiping away tears. Harry didn't know what to say for a moment, so he had no choice but to look at Adam, who was sitting next to the window. It seemed that this quiet little boy knew what was going on. It's kind of a little game in their family. Adam found a description that wasn't quite appropriate. He actually didn't quite understand the way this family got along. Of course, this was exactly why he was interested in the Weasley family. He is always full of curiosity about things he doesn't understand. "Okay, then Ron, I hope your mood will feel better soon." After Harry said this, he sat down and watched Ron looking through things, wiping his tears and laughing from time to time. This made Harry wonder if the child was stupid. Dimensional Wall. This chapter mainly restores part of the original plot, and then fleshes out the characters and the entire story. Well, since it's so watery, there must be another chapter today. The second watch beast is back. Chapter 92. Hello, my name is Mani Wanda. I am Ron's cousin. When the cool girl with short, dark brown hair walked into the box, Harry envied Ron again. Why do he only have relatives like Dudley? And Ron not only has a lovely sister, but also a beautiful cousin who seems to have a very special personality. Harry thought to himself, "Huh, Ronnie, I heard you're crying." The short-haired girl raised her eyebrows and said after sitting down. Even though Ron's eyes were a little red from crying, he still frowned and said stiffly, "No, Mani, please don't talk nonsense. I'm just a little sleepy, so I was typing just now, yawn." Even Harry couldn't stand the boy's lame excuse. Of course, the short-haired girl Mani wouldn't believe it. She raised her hand and rubbed Ron's head twice, making his already messy hair look even messier. "Why are you messing up my hair?" Ron said, very dissatisfied. "I don't want to see you being fooled by Fred and George. You probably don't know how much money they made with that guy Qin last year. The three of them are known as the capitalists of Hogwarts," Ming and I said, rolling her eyes. Well, this nickname was actually given to them by her, because every time there was a party at Hagrid's cabin, Qin and the three of them paid for a lot of food. Hearing Ming and I mention Qin, Harry immediately became energetic. "Hogwarts capitalists?" Ron said blankly. So, Mani briefly told what she knew about Qin and the Weasley twins reselling the Forbidden Forest products. Harry and Ron, who were present, were stunned. They didn't expect that just a first-year student and two second-year students could already do so many things and make so much money. Harry's eyes were full of eagerness, and he thought to himself, He is indeed Qin. Adam, who was sitting in the corner, had been listening to Mani's story quietly without any special reaction, just like a bystander with no sense of existence. So, they just spent a little money to buy you some new things. You can be a little touched, but there is no need to cry because of this little thing. Do you understand, Ronnie? Mani finally said concluded. But Ron's emotions were quite complicated after hearing her words. Okay, don't think so much. Capitalists' money will not be wasted until it is wasted. After Miss Mani said this, she grabbed the galleons that the Weasley twins had secretly stuffed into Ron's suitcase, picked one, opened the box, and walked out. At this time, a woman pushed a cart slowly passing by in the aisle. The cart was filled with all kinds of small commodities from the magical world. The woman shouted sales pitches and asked the children in the box one by one if they wanted to buy them. Her words can roughly be translated as pumpkin pie, all flavored beans, chocolate frog licorice balls. Come out and check out whatever you want. In short, this is the guy that girls with short hair are looking for. Hello, I need to buy some things here. Mani shouted. Okay, young lady, I'll be right over. The woman nodded with a smile and quickly approached while pushing the cart. When shopping, Mingni didn't pick and choose. She took some of everything and spent a gold galleons on it. Finally, she bought a lot and put them all on the empty seats in the box. Seeing that Mani bought so much, Harry couldn't help but take out the money from his pocket and buy a bunch too. The main reason is that he is a little hungry now, and he has a lot of magic world coins on him. When he sees others buying them, he also has the desire to buy them. Harry bought less and only bought something worth 11 silver coins. Note: currency of the magical world, 1 gold galleons equals 17 silver sickles, 1 silver sickles equals 29 copper nuts. So, the 4 children in the box ate those weird snacks from the magical world. For example, BB's multi-flavor beans, chocolate frogs, pumpkin pie, crucible-shaped cake, etc. Regardless of anyone else, Ron enjoyed his meal anyway, because the lunch his mother prepared for him was a corned beef sandwich, which was so dry that his mother often forgot that he didn't like it at all. Of course, it was difficult for her to be too meticulous when she had to take care of so many children by herself, and Ron didn't have much to complain about. This is a chocolate frog. There are celebrity cards from the wizarding world in the package. Your card is Merlin. You should know Merlin, right? Ron said, pointing to the thing in Harry's hand. Merlin's beard? Harry remembered what Qin Yu once taught him in Diagon Alley. Yes, that's him. However, I have collected a lot of Zhang Meilin. What I am missing now is Agrippa and Ptolemy, Ron said. Harry had never heard of either of the 2 names he mentioned. After Mani stuffed another pumpkin pie into her mouth, she said to them, "You kids are really passionate about this thing. I collected a dozen of them before and then gave up. You're not that big either, Mani. You're only 3 years older than me," Ron said unconvinced. Hey, little devil, I'm 3 years older than you, so I'm older than you. After saying this, Mungni reached out her hand again and ruffled Ron's hair that he had just arranged. Looking at the annoyed Ron, Mani clapped her hands with satisfaction, stood up and said, "I won't play with you anymore. I'm going to find Linda. Girls are much cuter." Just like that, Mani suddenly arrived, and after taunting Ron, she bought a bunch of snacks, ate some of them, and finally left simply. Ron, on the other hand, calmed down from the initial violent mood swings after his cousin made fun of him. Of course, he didn't think Fred and George were capitalists, but since the 2 brothers bought him things and gave him money to spend, he should be happy. At worst, he could just pay them back when he grows up. In short, Ron happily enjoyed the snacks bought with his brother's money and discussed with Harry the collection of cards on chocolate frogs and tried many flavors of BB's multi-flavor beans together. The 2 chatted and laughed and gradually became familiar with each other. We networked together and eventually became like friends we had known for many years. Adam, on the other hand, sat there quietly all the time. While Harry and Ron were discussing those topics, he was playing with a card on a chocolate frog. On the card was a man with silver white hair and long hair. An old man with a beard. The back of the card reads, Albus Dumbledore, current headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Harry finally saw Qin Yu again. This time it was Qin Yu who took the initiative to knock on the door of their box. Hermione was there too, and there was a fat, silly little boy accompanying them. Neville's toad is lost. We are helping him find it. Qin Yu explained his purpose, however. Neither Harry nor Ron have seen it. So, Qin Yu and the others left. Before leaving, Qin Yu also took some snacks and handed them to Hermione and Neville. The main reason was that when the snack cart passed by, Cedric was in the box, enthusiastically discussing the Quidditch training plan for the new semester with him, so he missed it. Now seeing that there is so much food in this box, how could Qin Yu not take some, since there are no outsiders anyway? When we get to school, I'll treat you to Hogsmeade delicacies, Qin Yu said to the three people in the box. Well, the kid named Adam is always so quiet that people almost ignore his existence. Not long after Qin Yu and the others walked, they met a little boy with blonde hair and a pale face in the aisle. After the blonde boy saw Qin Yu, he immediately showed an expression of surprise and embarrassment, because he finally confirmed who the two people he met in Mrs. Malkin's robe shop that day were. Dimensional wall. When there are more people, it becomes difficult to write. My level is limited, so please bear with me. I'll make further plans to see how to handle it better. Chapter 93. Our master Draco Malfoy has received a lot of praise and support on this magical express train. This made him feel a little elated for a while. However, what the students talked about the most was Qin, the popular figure in the school, and Harry Potter, who escaped from the hands of the Dark Lord Voldemort. Of course, they would not call Voldemort by his first name. I'm really looking forward to Qin's performance in the new school year. The Gryffindor Quidditch team has really changed a lot since we have Qin, but Charlie graduated and left, and he didn't know who would be the seeker on their team. It doesn't matter. With Qin as a batter, anyone can be a good Gryffindor seeker as long as he's not too bad. Then you try it? Hate. Isn't it because they don't want people from other colleges? Moreover, I will defend the honor of Hufflepuff College to the death. Whispering sound. To be honest, I heard that Qin's sister also came to Hogwarts to attend school. I wonder if she is also a very powerful person. That's definitely worth looking forward to. The Quidditch game made Qin Yu well known to everyone, and when people got to know him better, they found that he was also a person with excellent grades, reviews from teachers in various subjects, excellent character, feedback from some first-year freshmen, and popular. A lot of people, feedback from some first-year freshmen, made him quickly become a high-quality figure on campus. Of course, Qin Yu's reputation is limited to the school. He is a tyrant in the novice village, and he is just a stranger when he goes out. However, he doesn't care about this. He can learn things in school, upgrade secretly, and then have fun. As for the name Harry Potter, it has been circulating in the wizarding world for 10 years. However, everyone has only heard of his name before but never seen his name. This time, he finally saw him alive. The boy is in the front car. I passed by and took a look. He looked quite quiet. Then he is very powerful, isn't he? He must be very skilled in magic if he can escape from the mysterious man. Not necessarily. It looks pretty ordinary. But it's certainly not ordinary. That's true. These people's comments made Malfoy a little jealous. However, he felt that if he gave time, he would definitely be very famous in Hogwarts. Before that, he also wanted to see what those two people looked like. So, he took his two friends, followers, Crabbe and Goyle, and walked towards the carriage. Then he saw the man he met at Madame Malkin's robe shop in the aisle. The most important thing is that some students passing by smiled and greeted the man and called him Qin. Are you really Qin? Thinking about what he said that day, Malfoy's expression became somewhat unnatural. I didn't expect to meet so soon, Draco, Qin Yu said with a smile. You actually know my name? Malfoy's pupils shrank, and he exclaimed. Because I have met your father several times, and I am very impressed every time. Moreover, you have your iconic white golden hair, and your face that always makes people uncomfortable. Really just like your father, Qin Yu said coldly. Every time I meet Lucius Malfoy, I feel like a complete mess. Seeing his son Draco Malfoy at this time, how could Qin Yu have a good face? I don't know what happened between you and my father, but I hope you speak more civilly, Malfoy said with some guilt. He finally understood why his father would let him stay away from Qin because the two of them had a grudge. In fact, the main reason why Lucius asked him to stay away from Qin Yu was that he was too impressed by the first time he saw Qin Yu whip Jerome, and he was afraid that his son would also suffer. Oh, civility? Well, remember your words. If I find that you are uncivilized in school, I will have a good talk with you, Junior Malfoy. As Qin Yu spoke, he approached Malfoy, who was slightly shorter than him. At the end of his words, he reached out and patted the child on the shoulder, which made the latter tremble. That's for sure. The Malfoy family has a long heritage and is a pure-blood wizard family that is elegant, civilized, and polite. How could I do something uncivilized? Malfoy raised his little face and tried to make it sound. Calm yourself down. There was nothing I could do. Qinli was too close, and my heart couldn't help but beat wildly. I was really afraid of him and a little frightened. Very good, very good. I will reward my junior with a jelly bean, Qin Yu said and handed Malfoy a BB multi-flavor bean. By the way, Crabbe and Goyle, who were both silly and strong, were given one each. What is this? Master Malfoy has never eaten something like this that is only eaten by common people. Delicious food. Qin Yu also stuffed one into his mouth. Well, luckily, it's strawberry-flavored. Hermione, Neville, let's go. I guess that Toad has gone to another carriage. Qin Yu greeted his sister and the fat little Neville to leave. Malfoy swallowed and couldn't help but drop the BB's multi-flavored bean in his hand into his mouth. Immediately, his facial features immediately wrinkled in pain. So sour, Malfoy whispered. He felt that a lot of saliva was secreted in his mouth instantly. However, after the initial strongest sour taste, there began to be some sweetness in the mouth, and it seemed quite delicious. Such stimulation of taste buds was something Malfoy had never experienced before, and it made him like the strong sour taste for the first time. Qin, I will definitely catch up with you. Malfoy quickly chewed the jelly beans, swallowed them, and shouted to Qin Yu, who was walking away. I'm waiting for you, Qin Yu said without looking back. After Qin Yu and the others went to another carriage, Crabbe asked, Malfoy, are we still looking for Harry Potter? Go, why not go? Maybe he can also go to Slytherin. I hope he can understand the situation and choose to be with us. Malfoy had just seen Harry Potter's figure from a distance and had already confirmed that he was the little boy wearing glasses that he had seen in the robe shop. I came here this time to draw Harry into their small group. Of course, the most important purpose is to make the celebrity Harry Potter become friends with him, and it is best to listen to him. In that case, he will be too proud. However, thinking about this, Harry Potter and Qin knew each other. Malfoy felt that the goal could be lowered, and they could just become friends. Then, the Malfoy trio knocked on the box where Harry Potter was. Even thinking about what Qin Yu had just said to him to pay attention to civilization, Malfoy was still extremely arrogant after meeting Harry and Ron, and even made fun of the poverty of the Weasley family. Harry Potter naturally became more and more disgusted with this boy. Let alone being friends, if he didn't know any magic at all, it would not be impossible for him to fight on the spot. After all, Malfoy's words that mocked Ron sounded serious to Harry. It's about being angry on behalf of a friend. In this way, not only did Malfoy fail to make friends with Harry Potter, but the relationship between the two parties became tense. Oops, my stomach hurts. It must be the problem with that bean just now. Gore, who was both naive and strong, said, holding his stomach. Me too. Crabbe also covered his stomach. At this time, Malfoy's stomach began to growl. As a result, the three Malfoys, who were originally arrogant, left the box in embarrassment. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. This made Harry and Ron burst into laughter. Adam, who had always had no sense of presence, slowly put down his slightly raised hand and muttered to himself, what three noisy guys? Shopping, shopping. Dirty, dirty, the train speeds past. Along the way are vast mountains, rivers, forests, and wilderness, as well as the occasional Muggle town. On the train, the little wizards were chatting and laughing, sitting quietly, or admiring the scenery along the way, waiting for it to reach its destination. However, Qin Yu and Hermione failed to help Neville find the toad after all. Fortunately, after the little fat man was sad for a while, he temporarily forgot about it and ate the delicious food Qin Yu gave him. After seeing off the little fat man, the two of them were finally no longer disturbed by other people, because everyone had to make various preparations before getting off the bus. Qin Yu and Hermione also put on their respective wizard robes. Seeing Hermione again transformed into a cute little witch, especially with her chin raised and her arrogant look on her face, Qin Yu's heart felt hot and he couldn't help but reach out and pinch her little face. This girl looks so cute. If she were at home, it would be more than just pinching her cheek. No big deal, just read another poem. If you pinch it again, it will swell, Hermione said rather dissatisfied. I'm not trying hard enough. Then let me pinch you and give it a try. Come anyway. Then don't move. It hurts. I obviously didn't use so much force just now. Really? Then I'll be gentler and try again. Don't hide. You'd be a fool not to hide. Hey, you can't hide. Well. A certain girl fell into Qin Yu's arms because she couldn't stand firm for a moment. Then, she was too lazy to move anymore and took a rest. Dimensional wall. Well, talking about Kevin may seem too general and perfunctory. In fact, it is about the interaction of several key figures. What I thought before was a bit too simple, and it has been painful for 2 days. I'll try to straighten it out as soon as possible. I'll update it today. No more talk, Let's go to bed early. Chapter 94. In 5 minutes, the train will arrive at the terminal. Please don't carry too many things with you. Just leave your luggage in the car. We will help you deliver it to the school dormitory. A voice echoed in the carriage. Hermione was awakened from her sleep by the sound. Standing up from Qin Yu's arms in confusion, the little girl said blankly, "Are you here so soon? What else? Have you not slept enough?" Qin Yu said as he helped her straighten a few messy strands of hair. "I really didn't sleep enough. I actually didn't get a good rest last night. I wanted to go find you, but I was afraid you would drive me away." Hermione rubbed her eyes and mouthed he muttered and finally yawned. Qin Yu didn't expect that this girl was so nervous that she had insomnia last night. However, he thought back to his mood when he came to Hogwarts at the beginning of last year. Even though he had the experience of being a human being for 2 lifetimes, he was still very excited. This is true for me, let alone the little girl Hermione. Okay, don't be nervous. Hagrid will take you by boat to Hogwarts Castle later. You have met Hagrid. When you arrive at the school auditorium, you will be sorted, put on the sorting hat, etc. Just follow the assignment. Qin Yu held Hermione's little face with both hands, talking about the process of freshmen going to school, and rubbing her face to help her wake up quickly. Hermione nodded her head twice in his hand. Then, Qin Yu let go of the girl, and went to get some of his own things to take with him. As for Hermione's luggage, he put it away separately and would be sent to her own room when the sorting was over. "Yeah," Hermione suddenly exclaimed. "What's wrong?" Qin Yu looked over curiously. "Qin, my clothes are wrinkled." Hermione pointed at the robe she was wearing and said in distress. After changing into her robe just now, the girl fell asleep in Qin Yu's arms. Due to her dishonest sleep, wrinkles appeared in her robe, Hermione said, pulling at it with her hands, trying to stretch it out, but the effect was not obvious. "Hands away, I'll do it." Of course, Qin Yu didn't reach out to help her pull off her clothes. Instead, he took out his wand and cast a simple spell. Hermione's robe immediately became smooth and ironed again. Knowing some commonly used household magic, isn't this an essential skill for a qualified brother, Peng Yu? "Qin, you are so awesome." Hermione looked at Qin Yu with bright eyes and said, "Qin cast the spell so handsomely. If it were at home, she would definitely give him more than just a verbal compliment." Well, she is now always reminding herself that she is about to go to school, and she must pay attention to her speech and behavior, as well as her identity as a little wizard. The train stopped slowly, and the wizard students poured out of the door. It was very crowded for a while. First-grade students gather here. First-grade students gather here. Hagrid's voice sounded. Qin Yu took Hermione to say hello to Hagrid, and also chatted with Harry, Ron, and Adam. Harry and Ron looked uneasy. Qin Yu felt that they were not sure which foot to take first when walking. On the other hand, Adam was not nervous at all. Instead, he had a faint smile on his face and looked curious. "Look here and there. See you at school." Qin Yu waved to Hermione. "Yeah, see you at school." Hermione nodded solemnly. Harry, Ron, and Adam also waved goodbye to Qin Yu. Then, Qin Yu went with Elvis and others to get on the carriage pulled by the magical animal Thestral, along the tree-lined path by the lake, and returned to Hogwarts first. Along the way, several people chatted about what they had done during the summer vacation, especially Elvis, who once again thanked Qin Yu for his letter guidance. Soon, they entered the castle. After getting off the bus and walking down the long corridor, everyone felt extremely friendly. The same is true for Qin Yu. This magic school has carried his campus time for the past year. The plants, trees, bricks, and stones here are all so familiar. They seem to be welcoming his return. However, many familiar people cannot be seen here, such as Charlie, who graduated and went to Romania, such as Professor Swinton, who left Hogwarts to search for ancient ruins, and some people who have a good relationship with whom they cannot name. Gryffindor Senior. Instead, there are those freshmen who are about to enter the school, and he has become their senior. Thinking about it this way, there is indeed a feeling of things are different and people are different. Qin Yu followed the crowd into the auditorium of Hogwarts with emotion. At this time last year, it was here that he and his classmates were assigned to their respective colleges by the sorting hat. Now, it was replaced by Hermione, Harry, Ron, and other first-year students. Not long after the senior students sat down at the tables in their respective houses, the door to the auditorium was pushed open. Professor McGonagall, the vice principal of Hogwarts School and head of Gryffindor House, led the group of young students. The wizard came in. Hermione in the crowd, after following everyone in, subconsciously looked for Qin Yu's figure. When she saw him, her expression immediately became calmer. The same goes for Harry. After finding where Qin Yu was sitting, he couldn't help but look towards him. After all, his only acquaintances here were Hagrid and Qin Yu. The next step is for the Sorting Hat to decide which college everyone will attend. The person whose name I read out comes up, sits on the stool, and puts on the sorting hat, Professor McGonagall said, taking out a list written on parchment. Then, the first-year students walked on stage, one by one for college assignments. A little girl named Hannah Abbott was the first to take the stage, and the Sorting Hat quickly shouted, "Hufflepuff." After that, more than 20 students were assigned to the 4 houses of Ravenclaw, Gryffindor, Slytherin, and Hufflepuff. Hermione Granger. Professor McGonagall called Hermione's name. After hearing this, Qin Yu became a little nervous for no reason. He probably felt like an old father watching his daughter grow up. Bah, this is nothing to think about. Someone complained in his heart. He saw the little girl trotting onto the stage and sitting down on the stool. The Sorting Hat was placed on her head. She pursed her lips and blinked a few times, waiting for the Sorting Hat. Assign results. Gryffindor. The Sorting Hat quickly called out the name. An expression of excitement and joy suddenly appeared on Hermione's face. After taking off her hat, she bowed politely to Professor McGonagall, then turned around and trotted down the stage again, heading straight to Gryffindor's room. Go to the long table. After approaching, she immediately slowed down, moved her steps, and slowly sat down in the empty seat next to Qin Yu. The Gryffindor students responded with warm applause to Hermione's arrival. The little girl responded with a polite yet elegant smile. Adam Quinn. Following Hermione on stage was Adam. Qin Yu couldn't help but look towards the stage. He had an indescribable feeling about this boy with an ordinary name, not very eye-catching appearance, and a dull personality. After all, although this child did not have much sense of existence, he appeared in his sight many times. His intuition told him that this in itself speaks for itself. Of course, he also felt a little bit that he might be overly concerned. After all, if the other party was a suspicious person, the system would not pop up and give a prompt or something, etc. Why does the system definitely give me a prompt? Is it so trustworthy? Thinking of this, Qin Yu felt a chill in his heart. However, when he thought about it, he knew the plot of the story after all. Apart from Voldemort and Death Eaters, what other villains could there be in this world? And Adam was so young, he couldn't be a Death Eater, right? I may be too sensitive. Qin Yu couldn't help but laugh. These thoughts just passed by in a flash, and Qin Yu quickly turned his attention to the stage again. At this time, the Sorting Hat was shaking his head and muttering something, obviously thinking about how to allocate the place of the little boy below him. Dimensional wall. As you can see, there is actually a very difficult thing to deal with here. That is, readers all know that there must be something wrong with Adam. At this time, many suspenseful things cannot be set up, and the author can only rely on other characters. It's a bit difficult to write about Adam. It's really difficult for me, a cute new fat tiger. Then, given the protagonist's IQ, it's impossible not to think there's something wrong with Adam, but he doesn't have a god's perspective. This is a small foreshadowing. In short, it is very difficult to handle. Chapter 95. Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, Gryffindor, Slytherin. You seem to be able to go anywhere. It doesn't seem to be a good fit anywhere. You are an unexpected person? The Sorting Hat muttered in a dazed tone. Sorry for embarrassing you, Adam said calmly in his heart. So, no, sir. Which college are you going to? The Sorting Hat actually asked in a somewhat respectful tone. Let's go to Gryffindor. That college seems quite interesting. Adam glanced at the direction of Qin Yu, and this thought flashed through his mind. That's right. Interesting people do often appear in Gryffindor. Since this is your choice, then Gryffindor. After muttering a few words, the Sorting Hat shouted out the name of the house. Name. Adam stood up immediately, with a faint smile on his lips, took off his hat, and walked towards the Gryffindor table. The Gryffindor students naturally gave the new member a warm round of applause. Unexpectedly, you are also a student with difficulty in sorting? Qin Yu put down his clapping hands and said to Adam with a smile, and a trace of undetectable thought flashed in his eyes. The so-called students with difficulty in sorting are students who were unable to make a sorting decision for the Sorting Hat within 5 minutes. Historically, this was not very common. However, Adam only took about 1 minute and only made the Sorting Hat difficult for a short time. Obviously not included in this list, Qin Yu just borrowed the concept of difficult students in sorting. Adam was slightly startled when he heard this, and then said with a smile, Mr. Hat may think that I am not talented enough, so it is difficult for me to make decisions, You don't have to think too much. The Sorting Hat cannot decide a person's future. In short, welcome to Gryffindor. Qin Yu encouraged. Thank you, Qin. Adam nodded. Next, another person appeared who made the Sorting Hat think about it for a long time before making a decision. That is the little fat boy Neville Longbottom. Of course, our future Gryffindor Swordmaster was sorted into the cell as expected. Landfinder. However, the Sorting Hat's hesitation was due to Neville's slow reaction at this time, or because he could not see the future development trend clearly. Draco Malfoy was very fast. As soon as he put on the hat, he shouted the name, Slytherin, loudly. Master Malfoy immediately left his stool with a smile on his face and came to the Slytherin table. When it was the turn of the last name starting with the letter P, Harry Potter was called up to the stage. As for where Harry Potter should go, the Sorting Hat hesitated between Slytherin and Gryffindor. After Harry looked anxiously in the direction of Qin, Ron, and Adam, and looked at the table where the arrogant Malfoy sat with disgust, he said to the Sorting Hat in a very soft voice, "No, go to Slytherin." "Oh, not going to Slytherin? Another one who wants to go to Gryffindor." "Eh? Why did I say what?" Okay, since it's your wish so strong then, Gryffindor." The nagging Sorting Hat made the final decision. Harry Potter showed a look of joy, took off the Sorting Hat, and hurried to the Gryffindor table. Then, he sat down next to Adam, facing Qin Yu. Because Weasley's last name started with W, Ron was the second to last one on stage. On such an occasion, when it was the turn of someone so late in the order, this child was extremely nervous. His little face wrinkled together and his waist was hunched over, as if he had a stomachache. Fortunately, the Sorting Hat made a decision quickly and called out the name Gryffindor without hesitation. After all, it is normal for the Weasley family to go to Gryffindor. Finally, when the last student whose last name started with the letter Z was assigned, the annual sorting ceremony at Hogwarts came to a successful conclusion. Then, the headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, stood up and gave the opening speech. The general meaning was that he welcomed the new students, encouraged the old students, and hoped that all students would make further progress in their magic learning in the new school year. Finally, he asked everyone to enjoy today's food and let the teachers on the stage enjoy the wine. And as his words fell, the 4 long dining tables instantly transformed into tables full of delicacies. Seeing this scene, the first-year students suddenly let out exclamations that they had never seen before, and even Master Malfoy looked happy. Even though Hermione heard this from Qin Yu, her eyes still widened in surprise. Needless to say, Harry was amazed by the magic again. Second-year students like Jimmy and Wilson put on a calm and reserved look, showing the composure that an old student should have. "Open your mouth." Hearing these familiar words, Hermione opened her mouth subconsciously, and then a piece of fragrant and tender lamb steak was stuffed into her mouth. After chewing twice, the girl suddenly froze when she remembered the occasion. She closed her mouth and looked at Qin Yu with her eyes full of shock and her cheeks puffed out in shame. The meaning in those eyes seemed to say, "This is at school, not at home. Eat quickly, there's a lot more." Hermione heard this and subconsciously continued to chew, because the lamb chops at Hogwarts were so delicious. She was still a child. How could she resist the temptation of delicious food? After she swallowed it, another piece was brought to her mouth. She opened her mouth wide and bit it in one bite as if accepting her fate. Anyway, that was the end of the matter. So don't let down the delicious food. Seeing how much she was eating, Qin Yu nodded with satisfaction and fed another piece of carrot to supplement her vitamins. "Miss Granger, this is Hogwarts, your home for the next 7 years. Do you need to be so reserved?" Qin Yu said, handing over a bowl of soup. "Home?" Harry Potter, who was sitting opposite, raised his head after hearing this and repeated the word home. And when he said this, a strange light flashed in his eyes. He didn't want to pick up the fight, but he couldn't help it, because home is such a longing for him. Qin Yu looked at Harry and several first-year freshmen, raised his voice slightly and said, "Yes, Hogwarts is your home. So, juniors and juniors, you must be too polite when eating." After saying this, he said to the second-year students sitting next to him, "Jimmy, Wilson, show them. Let the juniors and juniors see what Gryffindor's dining style is." "No problem. Since you said so." The two of them had long been fed up with being decent seniors. One pulled a big chicken drumstick, and the other held a piece of buttered bread and chewed it in a vicious manner until his mouth was full of oil. Qin Yu couldn't help but smack his mouth in embarrassment as he watched the two men perform with excessive force. However, the effect is still good. When the first-year students saw the seniors looking like this, They all showed expressions of eagerness to try. Ahem then, what are you waiting for? Qin Yu said seriously to the first-year freshman, while he was not embarrassed enough to avoid the two guys. Ugh. Eat, eat, eat. I want to eat that fried potato. Please pass me some gravy. This roasted chicken is so delicious. After all, they are all children. Once there are no restraints, let them go. Of course, few of them were as hungry as Jimmy and Wilson. Harry was much better, but Ron's eating habits were exactly the same as Jimmy's. Looking at the lively first-year students, Elvis looked at Qin Yu and felt that it was completely normal for Qin to be there. As the newly promoted captain, Percy also nodded secretly. He learned some experience in mobilizing the atmosphere from Qin. As everyone knows, when Qin Yu said this, he just thought that Hermione was too reserved, and he couldn't stand it, so he fed her a few pieces of meat and carrots. In short, no matter what, the dinner on the first day of school became sumptuous and lively. Even Adam, who has always been mild-mannered, was like a hamster, munching on a plate full of vegetables, especially broccoli and pea shoots, both of which he had a special liking for. Qin, I want to eat this. Qin, I want to eat that. Qin, I want to drink juice. Qin, what happened again? I'm a little full from eating and feel so uncomfortable. Then don't eat it. But I haven't tasted that little cake yet. Then take a break and eat again. A certain little girl, if she lets go and eats, the consequences will be that she will be able to hold on until she is full. Of course, she is still in the early stages of development. If she eats more, she will only grow taller, not fat. Qin Yu has reason to believe that if she eats this way, this girl will be able to grow taller in a year. When they return home for the summer vacation, the Grangers will definitely be surprised. Chapter 96. After dinner, the first-year students were led back to the dormitories of each college by the male and female prefects of each college, while the old students went back on their own. The entrance code to the Gryffindor dormitory this time is Dragonslag. After Qin Yu, Elvis and others read this command, the portrait of the fat lady moved away, revealing the doorway. After they got in, they came to the public rest area that they had not seen for a long time. After taking a quick glance and not seeing Hermione here, Qin Yu returned to his dormitory first. The room is still the same as before. Whether it is the bed, table, chairs, or the various small ornaments on the table, there is no difference from before. Even the unique atmosphere of the castle in the air is exactly the same as before. These familiar things rushed towards Qin Yu's face, awakening Qin Yu's memories of the past year, and gradually pulled him back to the life track before summer vacation. After a brief tidying up, Jimmy, Wilson, and others sat on the bed, sharing the things they brought from home, mainly some food and toys, and excitedly talked about today's sorting ceremony. Teasing the first grade, the freshmen looked nervous when putting on the sorting hat, and they felt a sense of pride and superiority as senior students. As everyone knows, they were not much better last year. This is really like Qin Yu's college life and his previous life. From this point of view, there is actually not much difference whether it is a muggle or a wizard. At this moment, a second-year student who lived in the next dormitory came in and said, Qin, your sister is in the common rest area. She seems to be waiting for someone, eh? When the boy said this, he had a smile on his face, and after speaking, he raised his eyebrows at Qin Yu. Qin Yu punched the kid, said Q, and then hurriedly left the dormitory and went to the common rest area. I came to inform you, but I got punched in vain. What's the point? Are you right, Elvis? The man rubbed his shoulders and said to Elvis, who was sorting out his books. Hearing this, Elvis touched his nose and nodded, yeah. He actually wanted to say something more, but when the words came to his lips, he forgot the name of this classmate. After all, after not seeing each other for a summer vacation, this person appeared out of the blue, and he really couldn't remember his name. Okay, let's not talk anymore. I have to go back and pack my luggage. Have a happy new semester, Elvis. Happy new semester, Elvis quickly replied. Then, after the person left for a while, he couldn't remember the other person's name, as if some force in the dark grabbed his thoughts and prevented him from touching that name. When Qin Yu approached the public rest area, he saw the girl's figure next to the fireplace. Brown hair, white shirt, red and blue scarf, loose and decent black robe outside, and between the gray-blue skirt and black stockings is a fair and slender calf. At this time, the two slender calves were being lifted up and down in the open space in front of the fireplace, allowing the owner of the legs to pace back and forth. It could be seen from the frequency of her pacing that she was slightly anxious and impatient. When the girl walked back and forth and turned around again, her delicate and lovely face looked up, and her eyes caught an Oriental boy who had just walked into the public rest area. Qin, the girl smiled, and her original anxiety and impatience disappeared. Qin Yu did not respond, but gently stroked the girl's long brown hair twice and murmured, "It's just as imagined." "What's the same?" the girl asked blankly. "Well, it's just like in the dream. I dreamed that you appeared here, and then you were wearing a wizard's robe, just like you are now," Qin Yu said slowly. "Me too." The girl raised her head and looked at him. Her eyes seemed to be full of emotion that was too strong to be resolved. "What's the same?" Qin Yu looked into her eyes and repeated the question she just asked. "I also had the same dream. I dreamed that you were here, also wearing a wizard's robe and—" the girl murmured, but stopped abruptly at the end. "What else?" Qin Yu raised his eyebrows. "Nothing, just chatting and talking together." As the girl spoke, she felt a strong arm hugging her, and then her body fell uncontrollably onto someone's chest. "Is this true?" someone asked. "I won't tell you." The girl rubbed her little face against his chest. She felt the tension and fatigue from the day come over her instantly, and she really wanted to sleep. However, the occasional footsteps of a Gryffindor wizard passing by made the girl suddenly realize that this was not home. However, she then thought about it. Who said that Hogwarts is our home? So, it should be okay to hug for a while, and everyone is packing their luggage, and there are not many people in the rest area. Qin Yu considered that the girl might be thin-skinned, so he let go after a short hug. Then, he took her little hand and found a place to sit down and chat. Of course, it was mainly Hermione who was talking, because she really went through a lot today. "This place is even more magical than imagined. The castle is so big and there are so many corridors. The magic dome in the auditorium is 100 times more beautiful than what is described in the book. I couldn't imagine what it would be like for a hat to talk. Also, the dinner was really delicious. I met so many wizards at once, and I was actually a little bit nervous." "Qin, were you nervous when you first came here?" "How should I put it? The most nervous time was when I appeared in the attic of your house. Since that day, I have become less nervous." Qin Yu thought for a while and said, "Ah." The girl leaning on his shoulder was startled. She raised her head and looked at him with wide eyes. Then she pursed her lips and said guiltily, "Did I scare you that day?" Seeing her like this, Qin Yu couldn't help but reached out and ruffled her hair, and said with a smile, "How is that possible?" "Humph, if you dare to say that you were scared by me, I will bite you." Hermione wrinkled her nose and said fiercely, "Well, this girl seems to be becoming more lively and naughty now. Of course Qin Yu doesn't think this is a bad thing. Being happy is the most important thing in life. It's just that the way she looks, well, it's too foul." Qin Yu held her in his arms again and said softly in her ear, "How could you scare me? The day I open my eyes and see you is the most important day in this world for me." There are many meanings in these words, some of which cannot even be mentioned to others. However, even if she didn't know all the information hidden behind this sentence, the girl was still very happy. "That day was also my most important day in this world." Not long after, everyone had probably tidied up their dormitories, and more little wizards came to the common rest area. A certain 2 boys and girls also became upright and serious. The girl even took out a course schedule and discussed the courses she would take next, showing the seriousness and thirst for knowledge of a top student. Well, she is really looking forward to those magic classes, especially the transformation class. She thinks the transformation between items is very interesting and challenging. Dimensional wall. I heard there is a name change test. Could this book be changed to Harry Potter? From the day he came to Hermione's house? If nothing else, there should be another chapter today. Then, I will control the frequency of sprinkling sugar in the future. If I sprinkle too much, I might not be able to control it. After all, this book is a fanfic with a strong main line and a plot, probably. The author still needs to work on the main line more. Effort. You can read more daily new novels on. Both sites share the same login details, so you don't need to sign up again. Chapter 97. As the principal, Dumbledore attaches great importance to the opening day of Hogwarts every year. He would prepare an opening speech for the day, and when he was in high spirits, he would tell a joke that he had been thinking about for several days. Most people find his jokes confusing because he takes so long to prepare them, and they are too advanced and unreasonable. It was the same this year. He did tell a joke on stage, but no one seemed to notice that it was a joke. Of course, these are not important. As long as he sees those energetic children sitting in the auditorium full of expectation and admiration, Dumbledore feels an indescribable sense of satisfaction. It was this sense of satisfaction that kept him going for so many years. Because, from a long time ago, Dumbledore has positioned himself as an educator, not a great wizard, careerist, or powerful person. Even if he wants these things, he can get them at his fingertips. It's such a tempting trap at your fingertips. It was precisely because he wanted those things that were within his reach that he lost more. Later, he discovered that his mission was to do things that seemed difficult, such as cultivating innocent children into kind and brave wizards so that they could face it calmly. This world may not be perfect. This is not easy, or even very difficult, because many children easily succumb to ambition and lose themselves after being tempted by power. After saying the password, the door to the principal's office and living room opened. Dumbledore walked in holding the sorting hat. At this time, there was only one person, one bird, and one hat in the room. Phoenix Fox was already very old, squatting there motionless, as if taking a nap, and did not make any big reaction to Dumbledore's return. "Oh, dear Professor Dumbledore, congratulations on your new group of students." The talking hat couldn't help but speak first. "Tell me, who among the children this year is more special?" Dumbledore, who had long gray hair and beard, said to the sorting hat on the table after sitting down in his own chair. "Haha, of course it's Harry Potter. He's really special," the sorting hat said with a smile. The laughter was sharp and could not be called pleasant. "You know, I'm not asking about this child." Dumbledore's old eyes glanced at the hat through his half-moon glasses. "Then it must be Neville Longbottom. He is a child with a somewhat confused brain, but a promising future. He will become a brave Gryffindor wizard in the future," the sorting hat said in a high tone. At the end, it was sung like an opera. "Old friend, it seems that you have concerns. Do you want me to remind you?" Dumbledore said quietly to the hat. "Dumbledore, please don't say so much. You know, our existence is different from you wizards. We also need to be reverent. A higher level of existence." The sorting hat became hesitant and did not dare to go on. "Don't worry, this room has been cast with a spell to prevent detection," Dumbledore said with relief. "Not enough," the sorting hat said timidly, its tall hat twisting in a panic, as if it was looking around for something suspicious. "Then, I'll reinforce it," Dumbledore said, waving his ancient knobby wand, and a powerful and quiet spell instantly covered the area of the principal's office. Then, this world, and even people outside this world, cannot find out what is happening inside or what is being talked about. After separating from Hermione, Qin Yu returned to the dormitory. It took him a long time to stop the illusion that he could still smell the smell in his nose. Then, his mind began to calm down, thinking about today's events, especially what happened in the auditorium. At the end of the banquet, Dumbledore mentioned one thing as expected, which was that students were prohibited from going to the corridor on the right side of the fourth floor. Qin Yu knew that there were obstacles set up by Dumbledore to protect the Sorcerer's Stone, and the first hurdle was Hagrid's three-headed dog Lue. Well, he was partly involved in this matter. After all, he helped Hagrid buy the three-headed dog with his own money. Regarding the magic stone, as we all know, it is the ultimate alchemy product that can turn stones into gold and create elixirs of life. And most importantly, it is something that Voldemort covets, and it is the key to helping Voldemort resurrect. Qin Yu really wanted to have a good chat with Dumbledore and tell him to be careful about a suspicious professor who would try his best to steal the Philosopher's Stone. However, he had already made that choice during the summer vacation, which he couldn't do at all. "It really feels like I've been tricked by the system," Qin Yu couldn't help but cursed in his heart. In addition to the magic stone, Qin Yu is also thinking about another thing, and that is Professor Swinton. After the banquet, Qin Yu caught up with Snape, who was slowly leaving, and asked him if he had any news about Professor Swinton. "I only received a letter from him some time ago. In the letter, he said that he was going to Egypt to visit an ancient ruins. After that, I never heard from him again." Snape finished speaking. As if remembering something, he continued to Qin Yu. "Oh, by the way, he asked me to tell you that I wish you a happy new semester." When he said the latter sentence, Professor Snape's mouth twitched obviously. In fact, what Qin Yu didn't know was that Professor Swinton's original words in the letter were, "Severus, I won't write to Qin alone. You just need to inform him of my current situation. Let me wish our little brother a happy new semester." Obviously, Swinton wrote the word, younger brother, intentionally. After all, he was so far away, and he didn't have to worry about being inhumanely destroyed by Professor Snape. "I haven't seen Professor Swinton for such a long time, and I haven't received much news from him." Thinking about his various behaviors before leaving, such as the loneliness that occasionally flashed in his eyes, Qin Yu was inexplicably worried. Since Professor Swinton was traveling around at this time, it was difficult for him to have a fixed address. Qin Yu could not take the initiative to write to him and could only wait for his next letter to arrive. With his mind full of thoughts about the situation Professor Swinton might encounter and his unmentioned secrets, Qin Yu gradually fell asleep. Hermione. Huh? On Qin Yu's first night back at Hogwarts, in a mysterious neighborhood in Paris, a tall man was sitting in a bar drinking. He was Professor Swinton, who Qin Yu had been thinking about before going to bed. To be precise, his face is Professor Swinton's face, and his body is also Professor Swinton's body. But he is not Swinton. Ian, won't you buy me a drink? A blonde girl sat down next to this man. My pleasure. The man showed a bright smile, but his eyes were staring straight at the girl's cool upper body. That look was bold and playful. The girl did not show the slightest displeasure, but responded with a charming smile and said in a tired voice, I have asked you about your matter, and they are happy to have you join. However, you have to go to North America yourself. That a man named Garrett Abernathy is in New York right now. Thank you, Camille. The man smiled at the girl. Is it as simple as just saying thank you? The girl pouted, pretending to be dissatisfied. Then what do you want? The man looked directly at the girl again. Of course, it's up to you. The girl stretched out her hand and lightly traced the man's face with her fingers painted with scarlet nails. Soon, the man and the girl left the bar together. This bar where only wizards can enter. And this man is Ian Stanley. He has the appearance of Stephen Swinton, but has a different personality. At least, he doesn't mind unleashing his desires wantonly. Tonight in Paris, the night is like water, making people confused and intoxicated. Chapter 98. After leaving his job, Professor Stephen Swinton, the former Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, visited his hometown on the banks of the Devon River in Yorkshire, and then set off for Egypt. After visiting Egypt for a period of time, he locked his target and went up the Nile River to the ancient pyramid hidden outside the Muggle world and walked in. And something happened in that ancient ruins. So, when he came out, it was just Ian Stanley. At this time, the moonlight shines through the large glass window into this medieval-style bedroom. A white arm rested on his broad and thick chest. The owner of that arm had a blush on his cheeks and had fallen into a deep sleep. But Ian's eyes were frighteningly bright against the moonlight. The light in his eyes was the uncontrollable ambition and desire in his heart. I will not be like that fool, a teacher who only teases children, he whispered coldly. After coming out of that pyramid, he got rid of his biggest shackles and seemed to have gained a new life. After that, out of some instinctive vigilance, he did not stay in North Africa for too long, but returned to Europe and went to the magic school where he, or they once attended, Beauxbatons. They had many not-so-good memories in that magic school. Of course, there might also be some memorable things in that guy's memory. For example, the girl named Apollon, should be a woman now. In the memory, she has a delicate face, long golden hair, and a slender and graceful figure that seems to exude a silver halo. The young Stephen Swinton was once deeply obsessed with her, but Ian Stanley, who was hiding deep in his consciousness at the time, ridiculed him that he was just confused because the girl had half of the Vila blood from her mother. Later, due to ridiculous inferiority or other reasons, the guy let the girl slip away and received news of her marriage not long after. Now think about it. When young Stephen got the news, he looked really pitiful. Haha, what a pathetic guy, Ian commented in his heart. Also on the day he returned to Beauxbatons School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Ian saw a girl who looked very similar to Apollon on campus. That girl has a delicate face similar to hers, and also has long golden hair and a slender and graceful figure. She exudes a charming temperament from the inside out at a young age, and is simply a replica of Apollon. Especially when he saw her blue eyes, Ian was stunned for a moment. And this absence made him feel inexplicably afraid and angry, because he felt that this was the reaction that Stephen should have, not him. Therefore, on the day he went to Beauxbatons, he left, even putting aside his original intention of making trouble for certain people. Fleur Delacour. Thinking of this, Ian couldn't help but read the girl's name. So similar, so similar. That damn delicate face, damn long blonde hair, damn slender figure. Ian's anger reached its peak at this time. He looked at the sleeping woman next to him and stood up angrily. Ian, you again. The woman was awakened by his movements and couldn't help complaining. Shut up, Ian roared angrily, and the voice seemed to scream from his chest. The moonlight did not change its original brightness and spread leisurely into the room, but the people in the room were in confusion and rage. People always hope that they are just themselves, but they are afraid that they will become someone else. Little do they know, you are never just yourself. The next day, Ian Stanley got up energetically and had breakfast. Then, under the gaze of the beautiful witch named Camille, whose eyes were full of water, she left this residence and left Paris. He wants to find his own way. After coming out of that ancient pyramid, he was determined to make a career, regardless of light or darkness. Therefore, he traveled around Europe, looking for an opportunity. However, in recent years, Voldemort had become somewhat popular, but he had long since disappeared, and the Death Eaters had become street rats and prisoners. Naturally, Ian would not choose to join them. Then, in the wizarding neighborhood of Paris, he heard some news about GA, that is, Grindelwald's army. In less than a year, this group of forces has taken root in Brazil and the Americas and continues to grow, becoming a headache for the local Ministry of Magic/Magical Congress, and has even begun to spread to Europe. And this is exactly the opportunity that Ian longs for. So, he entrusted Camille to help find out the information. He had more ways to deal with women than Stephen. Now that he knew that the GA leader named Garrett Abernethy was in New York, North America, he naturally went to meet him for a while. He believed that he was exactly what they needed, and they are also the capital and soil he needs. Just like what is written in an Eastern poem. When he goes, the autumn wind meets the crystal dew, which is better than countless encounters in the world. If we raise our sights higher, then raise our sights higher, and then move sideways to the east of Paris. There, we will see a majestic mountain range called the Carpathians, which is the eastern extension of the Alps and is known as the backbone of Romania in the country we see. And just at a corner of this semicircular mountain range, there is a fairly open area of hills and grassland. If we suddenly drop our sight here, if we are lucky enough, we may see one or two flying dragons. Of course, the premise is that we are not muggles and can see through the illusion spells set by the wizards here. Yes, this is one of the most famous dragon farms in Europe, the Romanian dragon farm. And there is a young red-haired wizard who has just applied to be the fire dragon researcher here. Charlie, the little guy, is missing. Let's look for him separately. A sturdy wizard with a beard walked into a wooden house in an irritable mood. Okay, Benny, I'll go as soon as I finish writing this letter, the young wizard in the wooden house replied. After saying this, he wrote his name at the end of the letter, Charlie Weasley. The letter's header is, Dear Qin. Yes, this person is Charlie Weasley, the former captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team who just graduated from Hogwarts. In the past few days, Charlie had calculated the day when Hogwarts would start school and planned to write a few letters to his former classmates and friends, and Qin Yu was one of them. After putting the letter into a brown paper envelope and writing the recipient's information, Charlie called an owl and asked it to send several letters away together. Of course, this owl will definitely not be able to fly to the UK, and it will have to go through some transit before it can finally reach Hogwarts. Charlie doesn't have to worry about this, since he has already paid the postage of 1 silver sickle. After doing this, he walked out of the wooden house where they rested and went to look for the lost little guy, if a 3-meter-tall fire dragon could be called a little guy. And he soon found the fire dragon in a canyon with rugged rocks. However, what he didn't expect was that he actually witnessed a girl knocking away the 3-meter-tall fire dragon with one punch. It was a black-haired girl who was not too tall, about 17 or 18 years old. She was wearing red clothes, and her long black hair was tied into a neat ponytail. When she jumped up when he punched the fire dragon hard on the head, Charlie felt that it was like a giant hammer hitting a wooden pile. The sound of the impact shook the valley and made him feel nervous. Tremble. Huh, red-haired one. Is this the dragon you raised? The girl saw Charlie and raised her chin and asked. That's right, this is mine. Charlie replied subconsciously, but he immediately shook his head. It doesn't count as mine. I'm just a researcher. Researcher? It's so complicated. Forget it. Anyway, it stole my food and I beat it. Does this comply with your rules? The girl asked. Consistent. Charlie nodded confusedly. Well, that's good. The girl nodded. Then, the two fell into silence amidst the soft whine of the little fire dragon. Let me introduce myself. My name is Charlie Weasley. Can I know your name? Charlie asked bravely. Oh, my name is Pusey, the girl replied. What's Pusey? I mean, what's your full name? Charlie continued to ask after seeing how easy she talked, even a little cute. My name is Pusey. Pusey's Pusey. The girl felt that what she said should be clear enough. Well, Pusey, nice to meet you. Charlie gave up asking. After all, compared to her ability to knock away the Charmander with one punch, The fact that she didn't have a last name seemed so normal. For some unknown reason, Charlie invited the girl named Pusey back to the wooden house where he lived. Probably, maybe it was because he really couldn't stand the thought of such a petite and cute girl going to eat a wild boar, the food she was protecting from the fire dragon's mouth. Dimensional wall. Let's open up the layout first, and then write about the campus. Alas, I've been really stuck lately. In fact, I've thought about a lot of plot points, but the connection and narrative sequence are a bit stuck. In short, I will write slowly and try not to collapse. Then, am I asking for a gift now? Isn't it too much? Ahem. If it's convenient for everyone, please give me some free gifts. As the saying goes, if you give me a dime, the author can use DeBeo, you give me a piece, the world is full of love. Chapter 99. The encounter between Charlie and Pusey has only just begun. The second son of the Weasley family had never thought about what would happen to this girl in the future. He just instinctively believed that the girl was not a simple person and there would be no harm in getting in touch with him. This was also nonsense. He could kill a little girl with his bare hands. How could it be simple to hit a person with a dislocated jaw from a fire dragon? Then, he also felt that at least he knew some of the cooking skills he inherited from his mother, Molly Weasley, so that he wouldn't have to watch the little girl open her mouth and directly eat the raw meat with bloodshot eyes. And when the girl named Pusey ate the wild boar steak that Charlie had grilled, her eyes widened. Her mouth was full of oil while eating, and she vaguely praised Charlie's cooking skills. Well, it's delicious. From now on, well, just make this for me every day, and I'll hunt wild boars. Well, I want to eat it for the rest of my life, the meat you grilled. The girl's words directly made Charlie's old face turn red with shame. And Charlie also knew very well that Pusey did not know the specific meaning of the latter sentence on certain occasions. Ahem, no problem. The second son of the Weasley family cleared his throat and agreed to the girl. Well, isn't it just cooking? It's a very simple thing. Eat slowly. I'll make you tea. I learned this from a big friend. If you eat too much meat, drinking tea will make your stomach feel better. Charlie said this. A kettle was set up on the stove and began to boil water. Tea? I haven't drunk it yet. Thank you, the girl said with squinted eyes, and then continued eating barbecue. Looking at the girl who was eating happily, the corners of Charlie's mouth curled up slightly unconsciously. What a strange but energetic girl, he thought to himself. Then, he regretted that he had sent his letters too early. If he had sent them later, he could have written down what happened to him when he met Pusey. That boy Qin should really want to hear some weird things. And this guy, there are always many ideas that are different from others. Thinking of this, Charlie couldn't help but miss his life at Hogwarts. It was really an unforgettable memory. Here, please eat some meat. Once you are full, you will feel better. The girl suddenly handed Charlie a piece of barbecue ribs and said seriously. She probably noticed that the red-haired boy's mood suddenly became a little depressed. Thanks. Charlie took the fragrant and tender piece of barbecue, and after hesitating for a moment, he imitated the girl and started to eat it. Not to mention, eating so much meat makes me feel much better. The water is boiling, the tea is brewed, and each person has a cup. The girl holds the cup with both hands, blowing the hot air inside, taking small sips of this unique drink that is bitter but sweet. Her eyes are bent into crescents in comfort. While Charlie looking at her clumsy and happy look, her eyes gradually softened. Life in Longchong seems to have become less boring. The encounter between single mother-in-law Charlie Weasley and the wild and cute girl Pusey is like a meteor falling to the earth. It seems accidental, but in fact it is inevitable. Of course, the two parties involved were not aware of the arrangement and fooling of the hand of fate, and they just enjoyed the joy of meeting each other for the first time. One was happy because he ate meat, and the other was happy because he watched the other person eat meat. As the saying goes, it takes 10 years for a small tree to form a shade. Changes in personnel cannot be achieved in just a few years. All these can be regarded as a starting point, so I will not list them here for the time being, waiting for the follow-up. Next, let's catch up with Charlie's letters, ride on the wings of an owl, pass through several magical transmissions, and then transfer to another owl, and finally arrive at the great magic school, Hogwarts. It is the first week of the new school year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The disturbances from the outside world seem to have been excluded from the school by some invisible hand. The entire campus looks lively and lively. Among them, there is the restlessness after the holidays that senior students cannot suppress, and there is also the novelty and recklessness of first-year students. Among the senior students, such as the twins Fred and George, they tried to get Professor Quirrell to take off the garlic-smelling headscarf, but they were each deducted 10 points for causing trouble. Among the freshmen, such as Harry, Ron, and Adam, the three of them were often scolded by the administrator Argus Filch for appearing in corridors where they shouldn't be, even though Harry and Ron explained that they just walked in the wrong direction accidentally. When they got there, Filch continued to scold them for a long time. As a second-year student, Qin Yu is not like the Weasley twins who seek death, and Hermione is not like ordinary first-year students who get lost in the complicated corridors and stairs of Hogwarts. The reason why Hermione quickly became familiar with the terrain of Hogwarts was simply because she had a qualified guide. I have already taken you to the classrooms, herbal greenhouses, operation rooms, and object rooms that you often visit, and those stairs and doors that will suddenly turn or disappear. Pay attention. Finally, if you get lost, do you remember what I said about what to do? Qin Yu pointed at the simple layout diagram one by one and looked at Hermione at the end. Stay where you are and blow the whistle. Hermione said solemnly. Well, not bad. Qin Yu nodded with satisfaction. The whistle Hermione was talking about was not an ordinary whistle. It didn't even make a loud sound. It was made of a special alchemy material. When it was blown, Qin Yu carried another piece of the same property with him. The alchemy material will resonate. In this case, he will know immediately that Hermione is encountering a situation and can roughly sense her location. Of course, this material was also given to Qin Yu by Professor Swinton before leaving, and Qin Yu spent about a summer vacation thinking about how to refine it into a warning whistle. In short, as soon as he made it after school started, he paired it with Hermione and taught her how to use it. It was breakfast time, and the industrious owls flew into the auditorium carrying various letters and packages, fluttering and throwing things down. Qin Yu's white owl also dropped a letter into his hand. After receiving the letter, Qin Yu subconsciously raised his head and looked around, as if looking for something. However, he quickly shrugged and gave a self-deprecating chuckle, feeling that he might be a little nervous. There was nothing he could do about it. Recently, he occasionally felt like someone was staring at him, but he couldn't find the source. Is it because I am the protagonist and there are observers from a higher level watching me? A strange thought came to Qin Yu's mind. Thinking about these, he opened the letter. It was written by Charlie. He talked about his life at the dragon farm in Romania, which seemed quite interesting. He also invited me to come and have a look when I have the opportunity. Qin Yu read it over briefly and said, Hermione said as she kept poking her head next to her. Dragon farm? Are there really dragons there? Hermione said with bright eyes after hearing this. Of course, but he doesn't have a camera there, so he can't take photos and send them over. Otherwise, we should be able to see a photo of him and the fire dragon. After saying this, Qin Yu sounded quite helpless. After all, in my previous life, I had a mobile phone with tens of millions of pixels, so I could take pictures of whatever I wanted. Nowadays, it's really not that convenient. Even if you want to take daily photos of your sister, girlfriend, etc., you have to find a classmate with a magic camera. Alas, it's already 1991, and our Mr. Qin hasn't even taken a video. Qin Yu, author. If you use words indiscriminately, I will make you a mess, believe it or not. After breakfast, they went to class separately. Qin Yu and Hermione went in different directions. When she was about to reach the corner of the corridor, the little girl looked back, waved to Qin Yu, and showed a bright smile. Then, Qin Yu saw Hermione's roommates Parvati Patil and Lavender Brown biting their ears and talking. Hermione's face immediately turned red, and she said a few words to the two roommates, then turned and ran away. Seeing the cute little witch disappearing around the corner, Qin Yu couldn't help but smack his mouth, packed his mood, and went to the second-grade classroom with Elvis and the others. In the direction Hermione was going, a cold-faced magic teacher with long hair and a black robe walked into the underground classroom. Dimensional wall. Happy Children's Day. Pretend this chapter was posted yesterday. Chapter 100. Potions class is on Friday morning in first grade. Potions teacher Professor Snape was in a bad mood today. There were two people who made him feel bad. One was a Gryffindor student, and the other was also a Gryffindor student. The first one was Harry Potter. He had an annoying face that was very similar to his father, James Potter. When Snape saw it, he couldn't help but think of the experience of being bullied by James when he was young. That was not a shame. Happy memories. The second is Hermione Granger, who has the same persistence as her brother Qin, always trying to break something. In the former, Snape silenced him with a few very simple questions, and he also tried to quibble and refute. If such a student is not strictly disciplined, it is not impossible for him to become James number 2 in the future. Perhaps, for this reason, Snape thought it was reasonable to deduct 1 point from Gryffindor. And the latter, Miss Granger, was the one who raised her hands high when Snape asked questions. With a brother like Qin, it was normal for her to know the answers to these questions, and she, like her brother, Snape likes to be in the limelight, which disgusts Snape. However, thinking that Hermione Granger is Qin's sister after all, she can also be regarded as her own sister. No, there is no such relationship. In short, Snape just couldn't say anything too harsh. Miss Granger, if you raise your hands back, you can sit down. I'm afraid you will break the ceiling of this classroom if you stand up, Snape said indifferently, looking at the eager little girl. Well, I got it, Professor Snape. I won't stand up when I raise my hands next time. Hermione smiled back. It's just like Qin. It's hard to feel happy. In view of the bad mood caused by these two people, Snape gave the first-year students a series of severe reprimands in the following time. This left a very deep impression on this group of children. Most of them were extremely afraid of Snape and felt that the potions class could be ranked first among the most hated classes in Hogwarts. Location. And because she knew about Professor Snape's temperament from Qin Yu's letter a year ago, Hermione really didn't think he was as scary as other classmates. In fact, on the contrary, she liked Professor Snape's teaching style, clean, concise, and to the point, which is what a good teacher should be like. Of course, relatively speaking, her favorite teacher is Teacher Qin Yu. He will be very detailed when explaining the content. He will also pat her head and encourage her from time to time because she learns quickly and can draw inferences from one instance. Or, occasionally, he will look at her with a very special and gentle look, pinch her cheek gently, and then, ahem, we are in class now. We can't be distracted. We can't be distracted. Hermione quickly calmed herself down, not thinking about Qin's eyes or the sudden acceleration of her heartbeat when her cheek was lightly pinched. Then, she methodically stirred the thick liquid in the cauldron, watching their colors change, gradually excluding someone from her attention. It turned out that Hermione's progress in completing the magic potion configuration was very fast and good without some guy appearing in her mind to interfere with her. She even had time to stop little fat Neville from adding the porcupine quills to the boiling crucible in advance, thus avoiding a possible melting accident of the crucible. Mr. Longbottom, you should thank the caring Miss Granger for reminding her. If you had been a little later, you would have been covered in boils by now. Professor Snape looked at Na, who was still smiling naively with a stern look. Well, Longbottom. The little fat man was stunned for a moment, then curled his lips, shed tears, and said intermittently, Yes, I'm sorry, Professor Snape. I hope you can learn a lesson and really know where you went wrong. After Snape left these words, he ignored Neville. Then, he turned to look at Harry Potter beside him and said coldly, Miss Granger is stopping him from making mistakes. What are you doing, Mr. Potter? Huh. Harry was stunned by the question. Not only did you not remind you, but you were indifferent afterwards. You were probably laughing at Mr. Longbottom's carelessness, and you were even expecting someone to make a mistake. I don't. In view of your performance, 1 point will be deducted from Gryffindor. Harry wanted to say something else, but he was stopped by Ron. Ron told him in a low voice that Professor Snape had a bad temper and was simply unreasonable. He often deducted points from George and Fred. Professor, Hermione couldn't help but stood up and said, Miss Granger, what do you want to say? Snape looked at Hermione. I don't think you should judge Harry's thoughts so subjectively and deduct 1 point from him. Hermione said boldly. Oh, really? Then. Professor Snape paused, stared at the little girl and continued. Since you questioned and contradicted the teacher in class, 1 point from Gryffindor will be deducted. He was quite expecting this little girl to cry suddenly, just like the little fat guy just now, so that no one of them would dare to be so unscrupulous in his class. As for what will happen to that boy Qin when he finds out, do I need to care? Totally unnecessary. Hermione's eyes widened after hearing Snape's words. She didn't expect that this professor was more difficult to deal with than she imagined. However, Qin said there was no need to be afraid of him. Thinking of this, Hermione straightened her back, raised her chin and said, Professor Snape, even if you want to deduct my points, I will stick to the point I just made. Okay, you are brave. Another point will be deducted from Gryffindor. Snape did not give in at all. Hermione's mouth tightened, and her eyes immediately turned red. However, she held back her tears. I want to tell Qin. I want to tell him that he is wrong. This professor is really unreasonable. Hermione breathed heavily through her nose and shouted in her heart. Looking at Hermione, who finally calmed down and sat down, Professor Snape raised his eyebrows slightly and secretly breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. 1 gave him a headache last year, and 2 this year. Snape felt that they were probably sent by Merlin to punish him. Although Hermione was angry because of Professor Snape's unreasonableness, she did not complain too much after seeing Qin Yu, because she felt that she could handle such a small matter. Otherwise, how could she catch up with Qin Yu? Follow your footsteps and become the new top student at Hogwarts? She didn't want anyone to think that Hermione Granger was Qin's sister when they mention her in the future. What she hopes is that when someone mentions Qin in the future, they will say, "Look, he is the Minister of Magic." Well, this imagination is indeed a bit unrealistic. Who makes Qin always say that she can become the Minister of Magic? Sometimes I feel that she will really become such a big shot one day. What are you thinking about? Is the potions class not going well? Qin Yu asked curiously when he saw the girl's head was dazed. The two of them were having lunch in the auditorium at this time. Ever since Qin Yu sat down, he noticed that the first-year students were looking at Hermione a little strangely, and Hermione was occasionally in a daze. Thinking about Professor Snape's usual temperament, Qin Yu could make a rough guess. It's okay, but Professor Snape is a little too harsh. Hermione found a wording that she thought was more appropriate. How can you call him harsh? He is just unreasonable and deliberately targeting us. Harry couldn't help but said angrily. It seems that you have also been deducted points, Qin Yu said with a shrug. Huh. Several children looked at Qin Yu. Of course, except for Hermione, none of the other first-year students knew that Qin Yu had been deducted many points. Yes, I was deducted 1 point when I took the first potion class, Qin Yu admitted openly. Seeing their surprised expressions, Harry even looked relieved and excited. Qin Yu was afraid that these children would go astray, so he continued. However, my grades in potions class are excellent, and the reason why I was deducted points is not because I was not serious in class or did not get good grades. So, he briefly talked about the reason why he was deducted points. If he hadn't mentioned it at this time, he would have almost forgotten about the point deduction. Okay, let's talk about your affairs. Next, Harry mainly narrated. Ron added, Neville said sorry, and Adam occasionally nodded. At the end of the sentence, Harry, Ron, Neville, and the first-year students around them all looked at Hermione with admiration. There was no other way, but to dare to confront a terrible teacher of Professor Snape's level in class was definitely the embodiment of courage. Hermione's image in their minds instantly became a big sister-level existence. Instead, Hermione felt a little embarrassed. She looked at Qin Yu, bit her lip and hesitated. I actually just said what I wanted to say. Well, Qin had told her before not to be so eager to perform in Professor Snape's class, and also said that the professor had a weird temper. However, I was not obedient. Good job. Unexpectedly, Qin Yu touched her head and praised with a smile. He didn't let Hermione show off too quickly because he was afraid that Snape would scold her and cry. However, it turns out that Hermione was sorted into Gryffindor by the Sorting Hat because she did not lack courage. There were many things that she could not stop even if she wanted to. After all, this girl was a very independent person. In short, Qin Yu was surprised and pleased with Hermione's performance today. He felt that he might have wanted to protect her too much before, but instead forgot that our Miss Granger is a very powerful person. At least, she is on the way to becoming powerful. After all, he is the person who will become the Minister of Magic in the future. I think that when people introduce me in the future, I will say, this is the Minister of Magic's brother, Nan, and brother Run. Well, it is also a very honorable thing. Qin Yu's support and encouragement made Hermione smile. She felt that she could hold on until she was deducted 5 points next time before losing. When other people saw it, they suddenly felt that the topic just now was really boring. Look, we are condemning Professor Snape, but you are openly spreading dog food? Phew, is it the Ministry of Magic? Is there no one to take care of something as inhumane as dog abuse? Many people around me had similar thoughts in their minds. Dimensional Wall, thanks to the branches and leaves of Yutei Mountain, for sending 1 inspiration capsule, 1 shower, 2 reminders to spread flowers, and 3 to generate electricity with love. The readers spent a lot of money. Thank you to every reader for your gifts, reminders, and comments.
Thanks for watching. You can find the next videos in the playlist linked in the info card, directly on my channel, or right here on the screen. And as always, if you have any feedback, feel free to share it in the comments too.